Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another entertaining evening of exciting racing action in the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 11 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. That's right, we are back once again for another round of rudimentary racing action, but where exactly are we today? Well, we've made our way to Italy for our penultimate round of the season. It's in Italy in which we will stay to see the season out. An Italian doubleheader awaits, and first up is none other than Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli, a circuit named after the local hero who sadly passed away in motorsport as of 2012. It is a circuit known particularly for entertaining racing on two wheels. Indeed, a circuit that's played host to World Superbike as well as many other domestic and national motorcycle series. Well, on its opening in 1972, it was all about motorcycle racing, but over the course of its extensive, what has been 50-plus year history, this circuit has very quickly drawn four-wheel racing to it, and it's quite easy to see why. With its sweeping bends, rapid-fire direction changes, and also a mixture of short and long straights, plus a wide-open racing surface, it's absolutely perfect for racing on two and also four wheels, and with the fact it has very little elevation change around here, it's all about finding the flow and rhythm and being able to roar away to victory. And indeed, that's why it's a regular host that likes the GT World Challenge Europe on an annual basis, and to do well at Misano, you've really got to find a rhythm. However, that's when you're racing in the dry, but when you're racing in mixed conditions, as we'll see today, and you can see the rain in the background right now, with a lack of elevation change around the circuit, it does mean as well you've got to quite carefully avoid those puddles, as those puddles can very quickly catch you out, and should they do so, well, it could be drama very quickly for those, even the very best out there, as it just takes one small bit of aquaplaning, and you could be off the road and into the barrier. But what exactly are we here to see? Well, we'll find out very soon, but of course, we should welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side, as you tune in tonight for round number 9 of Split A's Season 11 Championship, and you can do it all, of course, on the official SimRacing International YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com and search for SimRacing International SRI, and you can catch all the weekly action for our racing series there. It's the only one place to do so. And if you are in the YouTube chat right now and you haven't said hi, don't be shy, feel free to do so, because the only biting you're going to see here today will be on the brakes of drivers' cars. That's of course, they do have anti-lock braking systems or ABS to make sure the brakes don't bite too hard, and therefore they are able to carry on without the infamous brake smoke. In the content, if you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be bringing you all your race actions from Split A today, and indeed over the entirety of the season. And of course, that means you are tuned into the Elite and Pro classes. However, if you are wanting to tune into the Premier and Evo classes, currently racing in parallel, don't fret. All you've got to do is go to our channel and make sure you pick up the Split B broadcast. And there, you'll be in the very capable hands and none other than Chaz Draycott and Darragh Thacker. Indeed, they'll be bringing you all the racing action from Split B, as I will bring you all the racing action from Split A. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, as we make our way into the penultimate round, well, the championships could be wrapped up here today as far as the Drivers' Championships are concerned, both in Elite and Pro, more so perhaps in Elite. Well, let's bring you up to speed with the story coming out of round number 8 and also what the championship permutations look like. So here we go. And so, as we take a look to our calendar then, last time out on the 26th of February, we wrapped up the second month of 2026 at the Nürburgring Grosser Preisstrecke. There at the Grand Prix Lounge for a 1-hour race, we got to see an absolute spectacle. However, overtakes perhaps were not as commonplace as we have seen in recent rounds, but what we did get to see there as well was some absolutely fantastic battling when it did arise, and also some big drama, some big shocks, and the biggest shocks, of course, coming in none other than qualifying. There we got to see Rhys Saunders, the pro pole sitter, almost take overall pole position. It's been a long time since we've seen a lower class try and take the overall pole position, particularly in the top split, but it was in the end all down to Benediktas Sinkevicius, who after changing the setup on the car, and he admitted in the post-round interview that he wasn't happy with the setup he was running, so he went back to a much earlier setup he'd worked on, and suddenly he found what was the best part of 3 attempts to dethrone Rhys Saunders from the overall pole, and therefore the elite driver was able to take both the class pole position and also the overall pole position. However, they did lock out the front row, but where for Rhys Saunders in taking the pro win, it was all about just simply avoiding batting with the elite drivers and just simply letting the pro win come to him, as his rivals meanwhile spent more time fighting each other and fighting other elite drivers. Well, in the elite class itself, there was a much bigger story. Now, at the very start, we got to see a lightning start from none other than William Humphrey. He leapt his way all the way from 7th to 3rd as quick as that, but then found himself in a fuel-saving situation that never quite worked out as he was pushing so hard. Meanwhile, for Hayden Miller, he was able to save quite a comfortable amount of fuel, and in the end, working with Benediktas Sinkevicius, it was all going so well. That wasn't until Sinkevicius did pick up a slowdown penalty, which gave Miller the lead, and after that he was able to take the win over the distance. But it wasn't quite straightforward because Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, or MTD as he's known to close friends, well, we did get to see MTD absolutely roar his way through the field, and in the end he looked very strong, and in the late stage of the race he was in the second and getting ready to attack Hayden Miller for the win, and then suddenly a discontinuity, a clock smash, meant that for MTD he was demoted back to 12th place in the elite class, and suddenly Benediktas Sinkevicius and Tseard Ploeg were able to get ahead, and it would be in the employee taking the third place spot on the podium, it would be Sinkevicius taking the second place spot on the podium, and it would be Miller surviving by the skin of his teeth, making his way all the way home to only his second victory of the season, and in his own words, a victory a long time coming, and indeed he hasn't been in the right place this season, but he's taken the wins, he's very happy with them. But meanwhile, understanding for Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, I spoke to him after the racing, once all the feelings and that cooled down, because I think in the heat of the moment, like anybody would, he'd have been absolutely fuming, and he was saying the fact that he was very pleased with how close he got to the win, but sadly it wasn't to be, and that could definitely be an argument for his season. So that was the story of the wins in the Nürburgring in Split A last time out, with Miller and Saunders taking the wins in the Elite and Pro classes respectively. But here we are today, it is the 5th of March, round number 9, and we are here at the Misano World Circuit's Grand Prix layout for two 30-minute races. Indeed, this is the final sprint race round of the season, and well, it wouldn't quite be a sprint race round at Misano if we didn't have mixed conditions. And even for those of you who have been tuning in for some time, you may remember, of course, Season 9's visit to Misano, particularly in Split B, where there's absolute pandemonium in the wet weather conditions, and in the second race today, we got to see an all-Evo overall podium. Indeed, the only time it's ever happened in the SimRacing International Series history, when we have had the lower class completely take over the podium in the second race of the day, or in any race over the course of the season. You had to be there to believe it and see it. Indeed, if you haven't checked out that broadcast, we definitely recommend you do so at some point soon. Perhaps you've got a spare hour over the weekend, because it's definitely one that is going to be memorable for all the right reasons. But mixed conditions today, and next time out, on the 12th of March, we'll be wrapping up the championship, and that'll be at the Imola Grand Prix circuit as we bring the curtain down under sunny skies, most likely, in round 10 of 10 for a 1-hour feature race finale. But coming into this round, we've told you who the winners were from last time out, but we haven't told you how the standings stand, so let's make sure we do that now. Here is the Elite Championship standings after 8 rounds. Now, to remind you with regards to points, remember, our drivers, they can drop one round from between round 1 to 9. The final round of the season, round number 10, is undroppable. So how does that change things? What does it actually mean when it comes to the standings? Well, in the elite class, your championship leader, Tseard Ploeg, he was not feeling too well last time out at the Nürburgring, but he was able to put a good lap together right at the end of qualifying when things were looking dismal, and in the race, he really was the 4th best driver out there in terms of pace, being promoted to 3rd as a result of the clock smash for MTD. Therefore, with that 3rd place finish, he has moved to 581 points. He is 137 points ahead of Hayden Miller, who's on 444. For Ploeg to take the crown for definite today, we've worked it out, he must score at least 80 points. If he does so and takes one win in class, he will be your champion with a round to spare, because on result countback, he'll then have a grand total of 5 wins. Nobody will be able to catch that within reach of him, and on top of that, with those 80 points, therefore, if Hayden Miller was to score the maximum next time out and was to do his utmost today, well, understandably, he would be tied on points with Ploeg, and it would go to countback, and that's where Ploeg would take the win. If Tseard Ploeg takes 81 points today, he will make it mathematically impossible for his rivals to beat him at Imola. So that's what he's got to do, 81 or more points, and he has got the job done, or 80 points, including a win, and he will be your Season 11 Provisional Elite Champion. But of course, the Vulkan Motorsports 1 driver will have the close company of his teammate in second then. Hayden Miller, well, after his second win of the season and now a 5th podium, can he go on a run of podiums for the remainder of the season? Can he get his head in the right space? If he can, well, then he might be able to break away from William Humphrey. Of course, last time out, not quite going the way he wanted to in the end with that 6th place finish. However, the Vulkan Fastest by Glass Tech Racing driver shine at the Nürburgring. He's got the pace in that Aston Martin, but unfortunately the strategy didn't come to fruition. However, he is ahead of Lewis Kenyon for Vulkan Motorsports 2, and it's been a long time since we've seen him on the podium, and indeed inside the top 5. Last time out was not a happy day, taking an 8th place finish in and really falling out of contention for the championship crown, and right now trying to stay in the hunt for a podium finish with Ryan Nickerson. Well, he's been rising up through the ranks, at 5th place last time out for Split Straight Esports, and as always, much like his teammate Fortis Katios in the pro class, a very quick driver in his car, and of course moving to that Ferrari, and we're very happy with the machinery. Benediktas Sinkevicius, as he mentioned to us last time out, he is targeting to finish inside the top 5 this season, because he is going to have to take a break after this season due to personal circumstances, but therefore he wants to end with a trophy, and trophies only come so fish inside the top 5 in the Elite Drivers' Championship. A second place last time out, one of his best results of the season, but he would like to return to the top step if he can. And then we do have the man who, despite setback after setback this season, he's back on the grid once again today. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis in 7th place, there on 320 points. 4th last time out, 9. It should have been 2nd. It could have been the win. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be, but can he make it a 2nd victory or even a 3rd here today? We look forward to seeing him try. Now, do keep in mind that whilst Ploeg is the big name at the very top, there is a lot of intrigue around who's going to finish 2nd through to 5th and take the remaining trophies, in the fact that we do have 2nd through to 7th only separated by 124 points. Therefore, it could swing any which way. Any one of those 6 drivers right now can take up the final 4 spots in the top 5. Tim Modig, meanwhile, well, he's a long shot if he wants to be able to do that. Currently sat in 8th place on 205 points. More so looking to make sure he's not caught up to by Dan Edvardsen, who had to retire last time out. And then the relentless racing driver being followed up there by Mark Hutchinson with 3 points adrift. And the free Altitude 3M esports driver round off that top 10, but only just ahead of Brandon Dyer, who looked very quick the last time we saw him in sprint races, but not on the grid last time out. So we hope to see him back once again today. And Jesper Svensson were non-finish after a difficult start to his race, for that big instant at lap 1, turn 4, catching him and many drivers out. Well, unfortunately for the Heracles Performance driver, he knows he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to end the season on a high. But as for the pro class, here we can see Rhys Saunders leads, now with another win in his pocket. Indeed, 5 wins in this season, and really proving for the most part that when it comes to feature races, he is absolutely unstoppable for Altitude 3M esports in his Ford Mustang GT3. Now, if he wants to wrap up the championship today, we've done the maths. It's very odd, the mathematics here. Saunders essentially needs to take the maximum score, and he needs Fotis Kantios and Mikey Story both to have disastrous rounds. If both of them to score minimal points, and we're not going to go through the exact numbers and permutations, because otherwise we will be here forever and we'll have to break out the blackboard and bring the chalk with it. But what we can say is that right now this championship is very likely, there's about a 95% chance the championship will go to Imola. It will not be wrapped up here today. The main thing you can expect is if Kantios and Story retire from this race or finish outside the points in both races, or finish so low in the points, only picking up 1 or 2, and Saunders takes the maximum 100, then he could in theory do it. But it is a remote chance of him doing so, and that's why we expect this will go to Imola. So therefore, he holds a lead of 105 points over Fotis Kantios, and the split track esports driver, well, as again, much like he's done all the way through the season, is McLaren, charges his way forward in the early stages at Nürburgring after a very close qualifying session, but he was beaten, of course, to the 2nd place in qualifying by a surprise 2nd place start for none other than Schubert Cardozo. But when Cardozo did have a bit of an instant midway through the early stage of the race, Kantios was there to pick up the pieces, and after that, he didn't look back. Mikey Story, what a dismal day it was for him. He made some early progress in qualifying, going from 5th on the starting grid all the way to 4th, but as much as he could then try and move his way up into 3rd, he got pushed back, given the fact he was fighting with elites as well as pros, and in the end, 4th place was the best he was able to do for Benediktas Motorsports Kumar. He's 10 points behind Fotis Kantios, and then he is a further, 100 points ahead, 106 to be precise, to Ville Katonen for Beowulf Racing Team, who right now, the hits keep on coming, and not positive ones of that. Indeed, they're not top 10 hits right now, they are top 20 hits in terms of where he's been finishing, and he'll want the music to change tune if he can, because otherwise Wesley Van Rens is encroaching upon him. Now only 12 points adrift for 9 Pegasus Panthera Racing. Then we do have Nicholas Carlson at Katonen's teammate in 6th then. He's really come on strong over the last few rounds with, of course, 2 second places and a 9th. Now on 390 points, they're only 2 adrift from the Dutchman, and in turn only a further, 53 points ahead of the other Dutchman that surrounds him, because that's Menno Blom there for SimRacing Team Lowlands. Hasn't been on the grid for the last couple of rounds, but we hope to see him back in the near future with his wonderful Corvette. Nathan Anstis there, well, it wasn't a happy day in the office at the Nürburgring for him, for UK Sim Racing at Norris, and therefore right now on 337 points apiece with Menno Blom, well, he's behind based on result count back, but he is still ahead of Liam Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club, and then Jamie Bardwell completes the top 10. They're trying to break back into the top 10 last week. Unfortunately, couldn't quite do so, but hopefully we'll see him do so today. Mark Johnson sits on 11th there on 287 points, a further 22 behind, and it's his teammate from the other Axis Sim Sport team, Chris Jennings, who rounds off your top 12 in the Pro Championship with a top 10 finish last time out of 7th place, and into his 2 previous 6th place finishes, he's definitely on the move. But if that's how the Drivers' Championship stand, what about the Teams' Championship? Well, here we can see it is still increasingly tight at the top, because Dexterous Motorsports Squad, they've held on to the lead, but there's been minimal change between them and the 2nd place team at Vulkan Motorsports by Glass Tech Racing. Only 11 points separate the 2 teams. They practically scored equal across the 2 splits last time out. And just a reminder, if you're new here today, the Teams' Championship is run across both splits, both Split A and Split B, so therefore you will see some teams and names here that you're not going to see on our Split A grid today, because they are racing and the Premier and the Evo classes as part of Split B. But therefore, the two teams at the very top, they're a mixture of drivers called Split A and Split B, and it really does show with the points coming on one side or the other, or indeed both splits each week. Meanwhile, Darkwing Racing, they hold on to third. They have made the way now into the top three for the first time this season. Another huge set of results in Split B, including a class win for Michael Rhodes. And what it does mean now is that they really are starting to put themselves in the favourite spot to perhaps take the third spot on the podium. Perhaps they could even close the gap to the top two come the end of today. You never know. How they'll have a close customer in the form of Moonshiners Racing Club. And right now, the Split B team finding they've hit a bit of a setback last time out for the most part. But of course, they want to move forward. And as well as that, of course, we do have to keep in mind Liam Fraser in Split A. Not even the happiest day in the office as well. So they need to regroup, because otherwise, Split Strat Esports are only 20 points behind there. And they have moved from 7th to 5th now. Their revival continues. They've had another solid day. And it's looking quite solid for them currently in the qualifying session at Misano. Vulkan Motorsports 1, they currently sit in 6th. They have had another huge haul of points. They've leapt all the way from 10th to 6th after falling back though over the last 2 rounds, and that's given the fact they did take, of course, a 2nd and a 3rd. Meanwhile, Axis Simsport Z there sit in 7th. They've dropped from 6th to 7th, but they won't be too upset about that. They did have a decent round, but Vulkan Motorsports scored a much larger haul of points. Vulkan Motorsports 2, they have now moved into 8th from 11th. They fell out of the top 10 last time out, and now they've made the way back into it, and Hayden Miller there really at the core of building up those points, as well as Lewis Kenyon picking up some subsidiary points. Unfortunately for Connor Spree, it hasn't been a season, particularly in the second half, that's really worked out for him. They're on 853 points, 2 ahead of Phoenix Racing, who sit in 9th there. And the Phoenix Racing red team have gone from 13th to 9th. They had their biggest set of results last time out at the Nürburgring across the price tracker, and that momentum has brought them all the way forward at the expense of several teams, including Altitude 3M Esports, who've dropped down to 10th place, and they are majorly at risk of falling outside the top 10, as well. Saunders won in the Pro class. Meanwhile, for Mark Hutchinson, it was a low score in the Elite class, and therefore they know today, with their Ford Mustangs, they're going to have to do something special, as otherwise they will be dropping outside the top 10, because right behind them, going from 15th to 11th, Phoenix Racing Blue, and indeed right now they're trying to knock on the door of the top 10 now, only 7 points behind the top 10. They're off screen, and we also do have GPX Simsport Onyx, Beowulf Racing, and MJK Sim Racing all within 19 points of 11th place. So you put it together right now, we do have a grand total of what is 26 points separating 10th through to 14th. It could be any one of what is 5 teams inside the top 10 come the end of this round going into the season finale. But with the standings recapped, let's talk a bit about our host circuit for today, and it is of course the Misano World Circuit. We are using the Grand Prix layout. It's modern layout located in the Misano Adriatico municipality of the Rimini province of the Emilia-Romagna region of Italy. Goodness me, that's a bit of a mouthful. But either way you look at it, where it's 2.61 miles or 4.2 kilometers, it always has 16 corners. And a huge thank you to iRacing.com for their brilliant simulator and the absolutely fantastic track maps contained within it. And the circuit, it's all about flow, about rhythm and direction change, and sweeping bends as well with very little elevation change. And so drivers roar the way down the start finish straight down towards turn 1. They'll find the way making the way through the right into left into right complex there, turns 1, 2 and 3, where it's 2 90-degree corners followed up by a much more granular sweeping bend before they head into Rio Bender turn 4. A sharp hairpin that then cuts back in towards a very sharp 90-degree right-hander at turn 5, and very quickly our drivers have to go from 2 right-handers to a left-hander at 6 to barrel their way through the kink of 7 and in towards Quirkia corner at turn 8. There, through the elongated hairpin, they'll come up towards what we turns 9 and 10, known as Tramonto, and it's all about braking at the apex of 9 to set up turn 10. You can go deep, you can go tight, you can do it any which way, as long as you get back on the power early, because of course then you've got the long run up the back straight or the back curve, going through Curvone at turn 11, then flat out through turn 12, and suddenly be hard onto the brakes before turn 13 to carry the speed all the way into Carrow Bend at turn 14. There another hairpin before our drivers make the way for the sweeping left of 15 and head in towards the Misano Bend at turn 16 to complete lap and do it all over again. Well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we brought you up to speed, so let's make our way back to circuit side and see how all of our drivers are getting on. And, well, we had rain earlier on, but now the sun's back out, and that's been the interesting thing. Now, we should point out we are running timelined weather, we are running a predicted forecast, and therefore it does mean that our drivers are aware of how the conditions are going to evolve, and the practice session saw a lot of cloud come over and rain come between practice and the start of qualifying, and qualifying has been really dominated by rain for the first, what has been about 20 to 30 minutes, but now in the final 16 to 15 minutes, we have seen the rain go away, and this is going to be a circuit now where everyone's currently on the wet tyre, but understandably, you can imagine they will be very quickly trying to see if they go onto the slick tyre before the very end. Now, we have got a couple of slick shoulder runners there, albeit out of what is a grand total of 36 cars here. 35 have put a lap to go. Mike Barber has not as of yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if perhaps he's waiting for a last gasp opportunity by going to the slick tyre right at the end. But currently, the provisional pole is overall and in elite. We said Split Track Esports look good in these conditions, and Ryan Nickerson, many of you may remember, of course, at VIR, the fact that he was looking very quick and actually kept Tseard Ploeg honest for the most part, but unfortunately threw away the opportunity to take the win and second place for a late error. And indeed, in the end, it was Benediktas Sinkevicius who was able to steal the second place off of him, albeit Nickerson really came back at him with ferocity towards the very end. But Nickerson right now the fastest out there by almost half a second over Tseard Ploeg in his Ferrari 296. But will it stay that way now? The circuit's starting to evolve backwards towards a drier circuit, albeit it's not going to become dry immediately. In fact, we might still have a bit of a wet circuit before the end of the session. And I suspect there will be a few puddles there, but if anybody can find a dry line that's good enough for slicks, Sonny, you might find someone who is able to improve by the best part of 2, 3, perhaps even 4 seconds, and Sonny completely turned the championship standings, and with it the timetable upside down. But as Nickerson makes his way onwards, well, if he's the quickest overall, well, Mark Hutchinson, meanwhile, now Bruce, he's on the wet tyre, but Sonny, he's all the way up there. That's the first time this season that we've seen Mark Hutchinson at the very top of the time tower there, and well, hopefully he can hold on to it, because we'd love to see him inside the top 10, but right now, 19 thousandths quicker than Nickerson, but the Altitude 3M Esports Ford Mustang there, looking good and looking quick. Tseard Ploeg currently third fastest, as you see him there in his Acura NSX Evo 22. And knowing that today, of course, the pressure is on his rivals more so than him if they do want to try and keep the championship alive going into Imola. But as he does get very close there to back Stephen Donnelly's Haribo machine, the JST Motorsports machinery in front. Well, right now we do know that he's quite a capable driver. We saw it at Portimao. We absolutely flew high. Remember, we got that warning very early on in the proceedings or the build-up to Portimao from Rhys Saunders, who said to us, watch out for Stephen Donnelly on race day. He's going to be the race winner. And in the end, the prediction came true. And well, Stephen Donnelly right now in the pro class, looking okay in these conditions, but hoping for a bit more time. As Ploeg in the end all over the back of him here and trying to say to him, I kind of need you to move. And in the end he does. But both drivers there, I think both having the attitude which is they want the race line. And in the end Donny goes a bit deep. I do wonder whether he might call that to the stewards afterwards, but I'm sure both drivers will have a little bit of a chat about that one as Donny brings himself back on. But as he does, well, we talked a little bit about our elite drivers, but who's the quickest right now in pro? There is Nicholas Carlson. He's looking to be the quickest, at least at this time. 3.5 tenths off of overall pole position. But in terms of how high up the order he is, well, he does have quite the gap, or the best part of 4 tenths between himself and his teammate for Beowulf Racing Team, currently of Ville Katonen, who's currently second fastest in the pro class, albeit 2 places between the two of them, and he's bringing a whole pack of pros with him. Bardwell, Anstis Donnelly, and Sonny Ashley Coutland leads forward. And well, looking at this man, and indeed many of you may remember last time out at the Nürburgring, who do you spend most of the race fighting with? I'll let you take a bit of a moment to think about it. Now, if you guessed it was a pro driver, you'd be absolutely right. If you guessed the name was Augustus de Blavicius, you would be 100% correct. Those two went absolute hammer and tongs against each other, and many would argue if it were not for the two of them fighting, and particularly for de Blavicius in the end just refusing to give in to the battle, he would have been able to catch up to Fotis Katios and pressure him for second place in pro in Germany. Indeed, it was a sight to behold. They were racing fairly, it should be pointed out, but indeed, he got very elbows out between the two drivers, and I think both in the end might have looked back on the race after and thought, well, that was great, but actually we could have caught up to other drivers. But meanwhile, speaking of catching up, well, Ryan Nickerson right now has gone the fastest of everybody. This circuit is getting quicker, and it's getting quicker quick. And indeed, if that's not the quickest way of saying something's going quick, then I don't know what is the fastest way to do so. And we'll try and use a bit of better vocabulary there as our lexicon completely falls apart. But meanwhile, Fotis Katios on a personal best here as he makes his way in towards turn number 16. Misano corner here, and we're going to get on board with him very shortly as he makes way out, decides to go deep there by design, and he heads on to his next time lap. Let's jump aboard for a fly with the Split Track Esports Pro driver. Well, in fact, as he cools the car down, they're coming in towards turn one. I think we're going to leave that on board for now. Yes, that was him trying to cool down and find some space off the road. So and he decides to go left, go right, and in the end takes the escape road. And when doing so, he's going to pick up a yellow flag. But I suspect that's all to make sure he does not step on the toes of anybody else, including none other than Hayden Miller there. So I was getting on board that with one of our other drivers instead. But Katios did improve slightly, but he's still got a lot more time to find. In terms of driver coming onto a lap very soon, who we can get an on board with. Well, I think we're going to be getting one with William Humphrey. I'm sure his dad's watching right now. And as we do see Humphrey make his way in towards the final bend, this lap's not an improving one. Indeed, he's not setting any personal bests out there. He's currently 7th fastest overall, 6th in class. But here we go. Let's see if he can go even quicker this time. It's making his way across the timeline and keeping the car over to the left-hand side of the road. Looks for his brake mark here, braking about 125 meters from corner apex down to third, right into left here. And as he rolls his way through that left-hander, making sure not to touch the apex curb, in dry conditions, they'll be all over it. Through free here, and this is all about managing throttle input. You do not want to use the brakes, you just want to manage the throttle, and in the end, fighting with a sensitive pitch to the front and end of the car, he breaks his way down towards turn number 4. Down to first gear at this point, an apex speed of 41 miles an hour. Now through turn number 5, a little bit of apex curve there just to rotate the car, and now into turn 6, avoids the puddle on the left-hand side. That gives him a very nice run out the corner, and now making his way up towards turn number 8. It's been a sensitive lap so far from William Humphrey, but to be fair, trying to avoid the puddles and find the racing line, that's what you need to do. And now braking his way down in towards turn number 8, all the way down the gearbox here to second gear, an apex of 45 miles an hour, fighting with power oversteer there as the rear tyres struggle to grip up. Now getting ready for turns 9 and 10. Here it's the right-hander at turn number 9 initially. You brake at the apex there to set up turn number 10, lets the car run deep, which is the idea, because water will gather on the apex curb itself and around it. And it slopes away, so the water falls away from the corner. Now makes its way onto the backstretch flat out here as the twin-turbo V8 Aston Martin machinery, or with Mercedes engine, comes through turn number 11 in towards 12. And well, now this is all about positioning the car well. We'll come in towards 12 and onto the brakes nice and early here to cut the speed. Drops to third gear, takes a bit of apex curve at 13. Lovely line there, that's absolutely perfect. Now coming through turn number 14, using Stephen Donny as a bit of a reference car as well, which is always helpful to see where he might hit a puddle. And coming through turn 15 now, William Humphrey's holding second gear and then getting ready for Misano bend at turn number 16, braking at about 120 meters here. The corner slightly downhill under braking, rolls his way through, and for Humphrey as he heads towards the timeline, it's been a better first sector, but what about the rest of the lap? And the answer is going to be he's currently 10th, and in the end he does not improve. Yes, he does. It takes a bit of a while to update, but William Humphrey does leap his way up to 6th there on a 1 minute 46.765. So now back into the top 6 overall and in elite, as meanwhile Stephen Donny put a good lap together there as he parks up. Meanwhile, Wesley Van Rens now is currently the fastest of your pro drivers out there, so he's found a bit of time. He'll be very pleased with that. And well, we need to find a little bit of time to say hello to a good number of you guys in the YouTube chat. And well, we do give a shout out there to Thomas Pugh, who says good luck tonight everyone. And of course I do believe he's racing as well, although maybe not in the split, although I might be getting him mixed up to be fair with the Sunday series. Indeed, Axis is what, a left, right and centre in my brain at the moment, and well, that's a good thing, I can promise you that. We also do say hello there to none other than Sovietsky, who is cheering up the Beowulf racing team, who says up Beowulf, and always good to see you, sir. We also do say hello there to Izzy Pop, who says this is going to be fun, good luck Altitude 3M guys. And we also do say hello there to none other than Mr. Clark from DXT Motorsports, who says big up Dexterous and Vulkan Fasters. And also there, of course, we do say hello to William Humphrey's dad, who says I am watching, yes, with a smiley face. And we say hello to SimRacing Charlie, who says looking forward to my debut next season. And indeed, season 12, well, sign-ups definitely open. I think in fact these sign-ups have already been filled out within 5 days and being open. In fact, they've filled up so quickly we haven't actually advertised it on the broadcast. And that's not intentional, by the way, that's just how popular the grid is. We will be talking about season 12 at the end of the season. So as of next week's broadcast, we will talk about season 12 in the build-up to going racing, and we'll also talk about it in a bit more detail at the end of next week's broadcast. There's a lot of change coming for season 12, a lot of very positive change coming, albeit it's a very positive series this. We always like to do things better when we can at SimRacing International, and that is what we're going to do. But as everyone makes their way through, right now, Sight Anthony, and definitely trying to find a positive here. Well, his positive is this is one of his better qualifying performances, albeit it won't be when he goes that deep. As meanwhile, we've got more improvements coming from several drivers, and well, Mr. Stubby, as he's known, once the Vulkan Fastest driver comes across the line, he moves up to 25th there on a 48.087, albeit still trying to find time. And well, I do hear the sound out my commentary booth window of a Corvette, and well, that would be the machinery of none other than Menno Blom, who is back here today. Where is Menno Blom at the moment? He is in 16th place, and here he is on the road. Indeed, he has made his way back. He's only taken one win this season, but of course, it was in the wet conditions at VIR, the absolutely biblical conditions, and he was the only driver in that race not to make a mistake in the pro class. Indeed, he had no major off tracks or spins, whereas everybody else did, including his teammate, who he almost ended up in contact with, that being none other than Mark De Vries. But in the end, Menno Blom bringing home an absolutely infamous victory, where essentially channeling in a way his inner Jenson Button from the 2012 Canadian Grand Prix, minus the part where Button, of course, and Hamilton came together, and many many would say, yes, the part where the McLaren driver took out his own teammate, but indeed it was a long race, and in the end, whilst it didn't go the distance of 4 hours, which that Grand Prix, of course, the longest race in Formula 1 history to this day, it was one of those races whereby as everybody else was making mistakes, Menno Blom was not, and indeed he did prove himself to be a bit of a rainmaster that day, and the equivalent of a Jensen Button on this grid. But as Lewis Kenyon does improve, he's down in 19th still with that improvement. Kenyon right now really struggling, and what you can tell, a lot of drivers here still on the wet tyre, but they are seeing the circuit is getting quicker and quicker. That dry line is so pronounced on some of these cameras now, but the problem they have is the fact that it's still too wet out there to go to the slick, but they're getting to the point where they're getting so confident in pushing on the wet, they're actually starting to make mistakes. But put a really good lap together, and suddenly you might propel yourself all the way up the orders. Mikey Story improves to a 48.012, but it still doesn't move him up from 23rd. He stays where he is, 12th in the pro class. Meanwhile, Brandon Dyer finds some time. And he's in the Acura. He switched the Acura, inspired, I do believe, a little bit by Tseard Ploeg. And right now, well, it does look quite good there as he goes to 10th in Elite and 14th overall. But what else is happening out there? Ryan Nickerson is still unshakable at the very top. And keep in mind, because this is a sprint race round when the clock strikes 0, that's it in qualifying. We do not get overtime today. So therefore, all the drivers must get the job done. Tseard Ploeg's gone fastest of everybody in the first sector. His middle sector was nothing to scream home about. And what about the last sector? The answer is going to be, it's good enough for pole. Tseard Ploeg right now, he won't get another lap in, a 46.198, a 10th quicker than Ryan Nickerson. Can Nickerson respond? Benediktas Sinkevicius, he's gone purple in the middle sector in his Lamborghini Huracan Evo. Could he put himself on the front row as well? Vulkan Motorsports on the rise, but he does not improve position. He improves the lap to 46.429. Wesley Van Rens is still holding on ahead of the Beowulf team pair of Villicaton and Nicholas Carlson. Carlson loves Misano, as we're hearing there in the YouTube chat, but unfortunately does not improve from 3rd in pro. Villicaton's not going to have time to improve here. This could be Wesley Van Rens' maiden pole position in pro for this season. It's come late, but to be fair, in challenging conditions, he's getting the job done. As Reece Saunders, meanwhile, is all the way down here in 24th. We do believe that he arrived quite late to the circuit today, so he hasn't had as much time to practice as many would. So therefore, for Reece Saunders right now, this could be a round where he's held back a little bit, although he'll still be the championship leader most likely going into the season finale, but that gap may actually be cut, given the fact that we do have Katios further up the order. In fact, do we? Trying to see where Fotis Katios is. Yes, he's 19th, and Mikey Story's trying to improve, but meanwhile, very last minute improvement there for Alex Fretwell. Of course, the Bathurst winner a couple of weeks ago in the pro class in the second race. But as qualifying comes to 0 on the clock, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Nobody else can improve. There was a last minute improvement or two for some drivers, but how exactly are they going to line up for the first race of the day? We're about to find out as we make our way to the grid for race number 1 or 2 here in round number 9 of Split A's Thursday GT3 Championship Season 11, brought to you on iRacing from SimRacing International. And so as they all make the way to the grid, this is how they'll line up. It is Tseard Ploeg who takes pole position there on a 46.198, spoiling the celebrations of Split Track Esports. The Vulkan Motorsports 1 drive just outpacing Ryan Nickerson to pole. It was a 10th between the two of them, but behind the Canadian. Then he'll have Vulkan Motorsports 1's Benediktas Sinkevicius starting 3rd. The second row of the grid also seeing Mark Hutchinson take his best qualifying points of the season. He'll be starting in 4th place there. What an effort from him. Tim Modig begins the day in 5th there for Sim Coach, ahead of William Humphrey for Vulkan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing. Modig taking a season best qualifying points as well, the smiling Swede. And then we will have on row number 4 your pro pole sister, his first pro pole position in his career. It is Wesley Van Rens for 9 Pegasus Pan for a race, and the Dutchman starts 7th, and he is joined on the 4th row of the grid by Villicaton, and 2nd of the pros for Beowulf Racing Team, and he returns to some of his season best. The Finn will then have the company of the Swede of none other than Nicholas Carlson, who starts 9th there, his best qualifying points of the season overall and in class. The Beowulf Racing Team will be very happy with this and hoping this could be a result that moves them very firmly back inside the top 10 of the team's championship. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, he snuck under the radar there, 10th for World of Racing with STR Esports. A good effort from him, no doubt about it. And then behind them on row number 6, it's going to be Stephen Donnelly for JSD Racing, head of Jamie Bardwell for Phoenix Racing Red. And indeed, Jamie Bardwell having a great qualifying points here. We're seeing a lot come out underneath the rocks here when it comes to the wet weather. Menno Blom starts 13th for SimRacing Team Lowlands, ahead of Ashley Coutland for Relentless Racing. And well, Ashley today, he's going to be getting flashbacks to Nürburgring and the fact that he does have several pros in front of him. He's thinking, oh, good lord, I've got to fight them all again. Thomas Bew, we did think he was on the grid. We were right to think so. The Axis Sport X driver starts 15th, and he is joined on the 8th row of the grid by a fellow elite driver of Brandon Dyer for Inter-Racing Team. Holds 2nd off the overall pole time, but he knows the potential of the Acura. He's got to show it. And then we do have Nathan Anstis. Late improvements in qualifying moved him to 7th in the Pro Class, 17th overall for UK SimRacing Norris, head of Hayden Miller And for the Vulkan Motorsports 2 driver, well, right now, that is not where he wants to be. He'll need to get inside the top 15 as a minimum to try and benefit from the potential reverse grid pole position if he finishes 15th or higher, of course. And he needs to keep that championship alive if he does so. Because remember, in the elite class, they only score points down to 15th. Alex Fretwell begins this one in 19th for RLH, ahead of Mikey Story for Benediktas Motorsports Kumar. And, well, round off the top 20, we then come to 21st. And Story is the highest of the top 3 in the championship on this grid. Or the pros, that is, because Fortis Katios is right behind him for Split Track Esports. Then it's Kenyon starting 22nd for Vulkan Motorsports 2, ahead of Mark De Vries for SimRacing Team Lowlands. Nick Stubbs starts 24th there for Vulkan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing, joining his fellow countryman on the 12th row, but ahead of the Englishman Mark Johnson there for Axis and Sport Y, and Reece Saunders for Altitude Frame Esports. The best he could do was 26th, or in other words, right towards the back end of the top 15 of the pro class, but I don't think he'll be too upset about that, knowing he learns very quickly as the race goes on. Then we see Cy Anstey starting 27th for UK SimRacing Hamilton, ahead of Danny Phillips, 28th for Benediktas Motorsports Kumar, with Chris Jennings for Axis and Sport X and his teammate David Hutchison making up your top 30. Then outside the top 30, 31st, it's James Howarth, and indeed not the best of qualifying performances, but still he's got a place to go from. And Benediktas Motorsports MX Drive will be in the company there of Liam Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club, good friends off the circuit, and I suspect they'll be friendly on the circuit as well. Schubert Cardoso, after his very impressive performance at the Nürburgring, starts 33rd for Inter-Racing Team. This has gone a bit backwards for him. He's ahead of Adam Baker for LS Racing, and Matthew Bacon will be the last driver to set a lap, starting 35th for SimCoach. And we do have Mike Barber starting from the very back of the grid there in 36th place. But as all these drivers make the way along, well, 36 cars on the grid, ladies and gentlemen. 2 are opting to start from the pit lane. That's Adam Bacon and Ashley Coutland. Baker has decided to go to the dry tyre in the pit lane. Have we got any other slick shod runners out there? Yes, we do. We have Mark Johnson. He's gambled on the slicks as well. Now, weather-wise, if you're wondering, as we do bring the weather up on the right side of your screen, we can't show you the rain percentage. We are not expecting the rain to come back in this race, as far as we are aware, based on the timeline. We're going to double check that very quickly, and in fact, my apologies, we are expecting very light rain over the course of this race, and then we are expecting the rain to go away by the time for race number 2. But of course, that is the forecast. Where it stays true or not, it can vary to a degree. So those who've gone to slicks right now, they are taking a big gamble, but it is a cool day today. Ambient at 20 degrees centigrade, a track at 24 degrees centigrade, and therefore this means this is going to be one of those circuits where wet and hot tyres, well, wet and slick tyres I should say, they won't get too hot too easily, and it is going to provide an opportunity for drivers to really push the tyre. But as Adam Baker has made his way back into the pits once again, he was at the end of the pit lane. He has now gone back to wet tyres. Well, the only driver out there on wet tyres is Mark Johnson. Is it folly? Is it brave? We don't know, but we'll find out soon. And as the field comes on down towards the last 3 quarters now, well, Tseard Ploeg here on this formation lap, on pole position ahead of Ryan Nickerson, but is he going to have a straightforward run? Can he get the first win out the way today and pick up 50 points? And I know all he needs to do is bring home 30 in the second race of the day or more to become champion. Well, we're about to see, ladies and gentlemen, for all that and more, because as the safety car gets ready to pull into the pit lane, it's Tseard Ploeg to take us away for 30 minutes of racing action here, race number 1 of the day in Split A's round 9 of the Thursday GT3 Championship. And it's lights out, away we go here for the first time today. Tseard Ploeg gets a good start, but Ryan Nickerson is immediately matching him. We're on the way in towards turn number 1. It's going to be side by side between these two. Who's going to turn in the last moment? Well, it's going to be practically dead even as the rest of the field makes its way onwards here. Plenty of 2 wides all the way in, but they're safely in towards the opening bend. But meanwhile, to the very back at the front of the field, we can see Ryan Nickerson going around the outside there to take the lead of Tseard Ploeg right away. So Nickerson moving onwards. Meanwhile, Benediktas Sinkevicius here side by side with Mark Hutchison. Hutchison going on the attack here. No, this is his perfect opportunity for his best result of the season, and as all the field now comes down in towards turns 4 and 5, we've got a couple of drivers there just tiptoeing the way on through, but everyone seems to be safely on through the corners for the most part, albeit Adam Baker and Ashley Coutland still leaving the pit lane, albeit I think Coutland's actually breached the pit limiter line, and therefore he does have already a drive-through penalty for not exiting the pit lane safely. But Nickerson right now holding on to lead, battling hard with Ploeg. Ploeg come back in him early. He's really trying to put the pressure on Tseard Ploeg. After Nickerson put the pressure on him through the opening couple of quarters, these two are fighting ferociously. Indeed, this is only the opening lap. We've still got plenty more of them to come. Meanwhile, we do see there none other than Jamie Bardwell keeping ahead of Tim Modig as Ville Katonen on the inside there of Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, the pro leader right now. He's really done a good job at the start of this race, but right now the Beowulf Racing Team driver trying to outrun Tomlinson-Dennis. I suspect he's going to fall back in there, knowing the Aston Martin's a bit too quick on the straight, and therefore there's going to be no opportunity. Further behind them, we do see a side-by-side between Brandon Dye and Nicholas Carlson. Carlson's had a terrible start to this race by comparison. He's dropped a long way back. Wesley Van Rens as well, he's lost out. Jamie Bardwell's gained massively in the Pro class. Bardwell all the way up to second place in Pro, as quick as that. And Nicholas Carlson trying to get up the inside here. Brandon Dye will get it in the end. They have to rub a little bit of paint there, but they'll get away with it this time. And Carlson now back on a recovery here after a slow start behind. That's going to be Fotis Katios here. Well, if you can predict anything, is that Fotis Katios is going to get his elbows out in the opening few laps and absolutely rip the tyres up to go for moves. He gets past there, Stephen Donnelly, and now Mikey Story tries to follow him through here. And I think Story's clocked onto the idea, whatever Katios does, follow him through the order, because he really is going to be a beacon of light here in the championship. But in towards turn of one right now, Stephen Donnelly tries to put the flames out. He does so there, a little bit of a rub, but in the end, Story goes deep, finds a patch of water. That's going to cause him to understeer further. And now Lewis Kenyon tries to go up the inside of him through three. Kenyon right now really having to be very sensitive here on the wet patches, and coming up towards turn number four. In the end, Story will cover him off. Onto the brakes they go, and in the end, that is more about Story covering off Kenyon rather than trying to look for a return move on Donnelly. Meanwhile, Nathan Anstis here fighting around the outside of Nick Starr, but it's going to be Starr who gets the place back off of him as they fight over ninth place in the elite class. But running the way from left into right, we have had a change of leader, we should point out, overall. Tseard Ploeg has got back ahead of Ryan Nickerson due to a slowdown for Ryan Nickerson due to track limits, so we are aware of it. We'll come back to them very soon. But meanwhile, Liam Fraser here still on the attack further back, looking to try and make a move on David Hutchinson here. Fraser's had a good start, to be fair to him, but now he wants even more. But David Hutchinson able to outbrake him there in towards turn number 8, and there's going to be no way through, at least for now, as all this field comes together. James Howarth there side by side with Matthew Bacon over the last couple of spots, but they're enjoying the fighting as well, and we can't fault them for it. As we can see there, Schubert Cardozo breaking away from them a bit, and in the rear of the picture, Ashley Koopman on the rise. But meanwhile, we come back to the front of the field. There's your top two, and then here's another two, because that's going to be Mark Hutchinson on the inside of Humphrey, going in towards turn number 13. And well, single file, it's a very tricky corner to get right. Double file, it's even worse, but here it's going to be even more. It's going to be kicking a man when he's down, as they say, with Benediktas Sinkevicius here. Sees a perfect opportunity to go up the inside of Humphrey into 14. That's not going to work. He's going to back out there as we jump aboard with Vulkan Motorsports 1 driver. He's close, he's itching for a fight. Meanwhile, MTD behind you can see there in the centre rear camera, right at the top of your screen. He's looking as we see Sinkevicius go very wide out of turn number 16. We've got to be careful, that is a lot of standing water down that exit curve. Remember, this is a very flat circuit, albeit the apexes are a little bit pronounced. They do sometimes actually camber down towards the apex in terms of the road surface, and that leads to water pooling on the apex curbing rather than the outside. It's more of a motorcycle racing to enable riders to get a bit lower in the corner and carry more speed, but in these cars, of course, it really changes the nature of the circuit by default. In the fact, you can carry just an extra 1 to 2 miles an hour because of the camber of the road, and you can exploit it, but also be mindful of the fact water will be there when it hasn't been dried up. But right now, as they all make their way through turns 4, 5 and 6, nobody can really find a move here as we briefly lose Humphrey to the ether, and he comes on back. Well, it's a good sign he's not going to disappear for too long there. Otherwise, we'd be a bit worried about a technical issue on its way. But Humphrey right now holding on, and Sinkevicius thinking about it. Is he going to go for it? Yes, he is. That's very late in the day, Howard, to go for it. In the end, he does have to back off there. That was one of those 50-50 moves that you know you shouldn't do, but he went for it to see what Humphrey would do in return, and to be fair to William Humphrey, he measured that perfectly. And well, he's now going to go for the switch back here. Sinkevicius dies in the inside contact between the two, however, and Humphrey's going to be elbowed out there. And well, what didn't work at 8 suddenly worked at turn number 10, but not about a little bit of contact between the two of them, and I think Humphrey won't be too pleased about that. But we know he's a man of movement rather than a man of words, and therefore he's going to try and go back in the attack here and make his movements back into 4th place when he can. But meanwhile, behind, Villa Catone's there as the rain starts to fall again. Brief bits of rain there. It's very light rain at the moment, but that does mean everyone's on the wets minus Mark Johnson, so Johnson's the one you've got to watch out for, because he might start to suffer as a result of this. But Villa Catonen's got the difficulty of Jamie Bardwell behind him for the pro lead right now as we show you the class standings. No pit stops expected in the races today, of course, unless it's for a drive-through penalty or for repair work to the car. This is going to be 2 30-minute sprints all the way to the finish line, so Catonen's got to hold on now and try to get Bardwell to fall back into fight with the likes of Miller and Modi. Of course, those two elite drives there, they'll be itching to move forward, but coming on to another lap further down the order, we do see Mark Johnson losing out there, so that's going to be Cy Anthony going around the outside of him. And well, initially when the rain falls, it's not too bad on the slick tyre. The problem that you'll have as Reece Saunders comes into the pit lane there off camera, well, he makes one in. You can see him on the right side. There he is. And for Reece Saunders, the Altitude 3M Esports driver, I suspect there must be an issue with the car, unless he's going to gamble going to the slicks here. If so, that's going to be a huge gamble. We'll have to wait and see. But there's no black flag for him. I suspect then it is either there's not enough fuel in the car by default, perhaps they put the qualifying setup on the car, which if so, that's definitely one of those egg on your face moments, but it happens to everyone. But for the championship lead in the pro class right now, that is not a good sign. But as we can see, no rain on the cameras, but I suspect from the driver's perspective, it might be very fine rain out there, if any at all. We're waiting to see what is to happen next, as we see Mikey Story here trying to chase after Stephen Donnelly, but Lewis Kenyon still trying to poke and probe his way through. Turn number 8 right now, and you can see they're both drivers just about maintaining the lines in the Porsche 992. It's a very tricky corner to get right in the dry turn 8. It's one of those corners where you think you want to go for an early apex, but the earlier you go for it, the worse the corner gets. You've got to go so deep that you practically forget there's a corner there, and then suddenly, there's the apex I've been looking for all this time. But further back down, we do see here James Howarth versus Chris Jennings. They're fighting over 19th in pro. They'll look to the outside there from Howarth, not going to be able to find it initially, but two very cumbersome V8 machines, one from Germany in the form of the Benediktas Motorsports Mercedes, the other one from the US of A in Chris Jensen's Ford Mustang. And the problem is, whilst they've got all the power on the straights and the acceleration zones, you want a car that's a little bit more sturdy in the corners, and these cars are not made for it, particularly in these wet weather conditions. But from them, we've also got plenty of fighting here going on. That's going to be Mark Johnson, still on the slick tyre. He's trying to survive on the slick right now, and we can tell you that Reece Saunders hasn't gone into the pit lane. I think it was for repair work for Saunders' car, because he's only stationary for 1.5 seconds, so they've repaired something that was damaged, and he's gone back onto his wet tyres. He has not changed them, so therefore Mark Johnson is the only slick runner right now. And in terms of progress, he's not really making any, albeit he's going to try and make a move here on St. Anthony, but as he looks up the inside, the problem he's got in the fact, yes, he has the slick tyre, and he does actually look a little bit quicker compared to those around him, but remember, the wet tyre allows you to use the entire track surface because there's water in most places apart from the drying line. The slick tyre, you've got to be on the dry line, but the problem is everyone is on the drying line, so how do you make an overtake? You've got to come off the dry line, and that's the thing when you're a slick runner versus wet runners. All the wet runners need to do is stay in the dry line, and then they force you to drive on the water, and you can't make progress because you've got no traction in the tyres. So it's really easy defence in theory at least, but Mark Johnson right now making that move on St. Anthony. His next target will be Mark De Vries. But whilst this is playing out, we look back up to Menno Bloem. He's got the company here of none other than Fortis Katios. Katios trying to make a move up into turn 8. Find out the fact on the inside there, it's not going to be too easy, but he'll try and do a Sinkevicius now, and most likely look up the inside into Tseard. He's going to go for it. A little bit of pitch of the apex, and in the end, very late on the brakes there, he is going to get ahead, but Bloem immediately lets the car roll wide, so in the end, he'll get a better run in the Corvette. Indeed, the Corvette and the Ferrari, they look very similar in terms of their silhouette right now, but the American machine, with 5.5 litre V8, just trying to outrun the Ferrari. They're so close here. Wider circumference coming through turn 11 in towards 12 here, and it's going to be Fortis Katios getting ahead of the Corvette in the end. And will the Split Straight Esports try now into 5th place here, and these are the races he enjoys the most, where he doesn't have to think about strategy. All he needs to think about is essentially going on the attack, and I do believe the team essentially say to him, go for it, Fortis, don't worry about the tyres, we'll sort out the repair bill later for them. Meanwhile, Stephen Donnelly chasing after Menno Bloem. And the JSD Racing driver right now picking up the pieces a little bit and the pace. Well, he's been a bit slow in the early stage of the race. Takes a look at the inside into Misano bends there. That's not going to work out as the rain starts to come down heavier. And well, the wet tyres were definitely the right choice if this rain continues. And we're going to be finding very soon that Mark Johnson's going to struggle. In fact, Mark Johnson here being swarmed out the last corner. I think he has been elbowed slightly there. I don't think he's too pleased about what's happened. We'll get a replay of that when we can. But definitely now, with this water coming down, it's going to be a situation where his tyres, they're going to get cold, and suddenly he will start to aquaplane very aggressively because the slick tyre is exactly what it says on the tin. It has no tread on it. It is a slick, whereas the wet tyre does have a tread block to distribute the water away from the tyre and the car. But looking down the outside, that's Mark De Vries trying to make a move. As we look back to your overall positions, De Vries trying to make a move on Danny Phillips, as Phillips gets a lot of oversteer there, going through turn number 4 into 5. And in the end, was he aided in that adventure, or did he get it loose on his own doing? We'll try and get a replay of that. He's not too happy. I suspect there might have been a bit of contact side to side there with Mark De Vries, but in the end, Phillips losing out, and now Mark Johnson tucks onto the back of him. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a look back in time and see how this race all played out, starting with, of course, the very start of the race as we go back to the beginning. So, how did it all begin, I hear you ask? Well, it all began with Tseard Ploeg and Ryan Nickerson side by side. When it wasn't raining, the circuit was drying up. But as they went green, well, you can see there Ploeg and Nickerson practically equal as they left their starting spots, albeit Ploeg just inching ahead by about, 10 centimetres, and going in towards the opening corner. Well, Ryan Nickerson was never going to back out of this. He went too wide all the way through, got to the inside of turn 2. Ploeg went deep there, had a lot of a slide going on, and therefore Nickerson went around the outside of it and took the lead. Brilliant battling between them in the early stages. The rest of the field came through, but they all snake training on around, and we understand, given how challenging the conditions are, I'm not surprised at that. But meanwhile, what exactly happened after that? What big moments did we have? Well, we did have some big moments for none other than Bardwell, who had a monster start to the race, and this was Jamie Bardwell An absolutely brilliant start here as the field was about to go. Well, of course, being side by side here, watching his start. In fact, we'll get the on board. When they all went green, the Phoenix Racing red driver here, well, it looks like he timed it to perfection. Everybody indeed was a little bit slow. There was Carlson really struggling to go there. And, well, meanwhile, Wesley Van Rens under pressure immediately. So as they made the way into that corner, when something happened to Van Rens to lose out, he was on the outside there at turn number 2. And I think that's how he lost it all, to his discredit. Indeed, yes, he was elbowed out there as a result by going deep. And Sonny lost the pace, and he had Nicholas Carlson on his inside, so the two of them had to negotiate each other, and Jamie Bard was able to clear him as quick as that. As Vela Katona, meanwhile, definitely had an absolutely solid start to the race and was able to hold his ground. Now, we hadn't had too many other major moments since that, other than what was this for Ashley Goodland on lap number 4, which required him to tow to the pits in the Relentless Racing cars, coming through turn number 5 in towards 6. It all went a bit wrong here in the rear of the car, letting go, so that was a tow after hitting the barrier, and we had this only moments ago for Danny Phillips. And what was lap number 6, coming down into the braking zone for turn 4, battling side by side with their Mark DeVries in the 25. Got the power down. In fact, I think he might have been tapped there by Cy Anthony. Was he touched there by Anthony? Can we get an on board from Cy Anthony's perspective? We might be able to. This is the on board with Cy Anthony. Let's listen in. Oh, it's a very difficult one. I think Phillips was going around and Anthony did give him a little bit of touch. I think there might have been a tiny tap from DeVries as well, but it looks though Phillips was slightly loose, and the two pro drivers helps the elite driver go on his journey. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's back to your live racing we go. And in good time as well, because we're getting close towards the halfway point. The rain is definitely coming down now, and well, at this point, of course, it's all going to come down to who's the best at re-evolving their strategy in terms of managing these conditions. And that's going to be a move there from Liam Fraser up the inside of Phillips, who finds himself being put down the order by the pro drivers around him. And right now, Danny Phillips definitely having one of those days where it's going backwards, not forwards. But meanwhile, we look forwards to your leader of Tseard Ploeg, and as much as he has held on to lead, well, in fact, hold the phone on that one, because there's a change of pro leader. Willem Catone's picked up a yellow flag. He's gone wide. I think he's cut the course at turn number 2 in order to try and keep the car together, and he's going to lose the pro lead to Jamie Bardwell, and he's now going to lose even more time. And at this point, it's going to be a moment whereby I think Wesley Van Rens will be trying to close up as quickly as he can. He'll notice the fact that things aren't going right for the Beowulf Racing Team 39, and he'll look to try and add to its misery, but he won't be able to do too much more when you consider that Katona has served his slowdown coming out of turns 5 and 6, so therefore he holds on to second place in pro, but there's been an error for him, and we will get you a replay of that very soon. Meanwhile, coming to his teammate here, that's Nicholas Carlson, coming in very hot, way too hot, takes a bit of the apex curve with him, with a very light touch there to the white lines before the curve going in towards turn number 8, and then snaps the car away, going straight on there, very well handled by Nicholas Carlson. I think missed his braking zone there, and in the end, well, almost make his way towards Stephen Donnelly, but making sure to avoid that. Very respectful driving there from the Swede. Donnelly saw what was going and made sure not to turn the steering wheel in, and Mikey Story sees on the opportunity and now moves up into 7th place there in the pro class. The Dexterous Motorsports car driver, whilst he may not be the fastest out, he's definitely the equal opportunist, and he's making most of those opportunities like nobody else. But coming down in towards the hairpin right now, I think Carlson will be hoping to come back in sooner rather than later, but this rain definitely continues to top up with the pools of water on the circuit, but also making it a much harder circuit to battle on, as meanwhile Stephen Donnelly and Mena Blum, they have no difficulty in battling each other. Side by side coming up towards what will be turn 15, but it is going to be Blum who falls back. Meanwhile, Jamie Bardwell, oh my good lord, what on earth has happened here? That's Bardwell, that's Van Rens, and suddenly it's Stephen Donnelly up the inside. There's Mena Blum. Van Rens' car's in pieces, and the suspension has completely collapsed on it. He's going to tow to the pit lane. We're going to need a replay of that stat, because what on earth has happened there? And suddenly Villa Catone's into lead for the pro class. Fortis catches us up into second of it. Stephen Donnelly's right behind. Mena Blum, Jamie Bardwell, Mikey Story, Nicholas Carlson, they're all there together. This pro class right now is completely erupted, and as we see that Carlson battling side by side with Story, well, right now Nicholas Carlson, he's looking to pick things up here. He wants to make it a 1-2 for Beowulf Racing Team, with Katonen in the lead of the class, and Carlson here thinks himself, he knows he's got the pace in the wet to try and win the race. The only problem is Wade's fallen down the order earlier on. He's now got to make his way on through, but he takes a very risky bit around the outside to the inside there for turns 4, 5 and 6. What a lovely move there for Nicholas Carlson. He is bravery defined by doing something like that. You don't normally do moves like that, but Nicholas Carlson says, yes I do. But further back we do see what is Lewis Kenyon and also Thomas Pugh queuing up on this. The two elite drivers here, they want to try and get involved, but not when Lewis Kenyon goes very sideways on the apex. Got to be careful of that. The car really just not staying planted there, and that's normally the sign of the fact the rear end is lifting under braking. When he comes down to the braking zone for turns 9 and 10 right now, he takes too much curve. He's going to go straight on there, and for Lewis Kenyon, what was woe is now misery, and that's going to enable Nathan Anstis and Nick Stubb to come past him. But meanwhile, speaking of things that have become history, well, right now Stephen end on his chances of second place are going to become history when he has got what will be Fotis Katios right behind him? The answer, no. Katios was much quicker going around the back stretch, but by the time they got to the triple right-hander of turns 12, 13 and 14, when in Katios not quite able to get close. Meanwhile, there's a car very wide. That's Mikey Story taking a rallycross moment, and the Dexter's Motorsports car driving the end, running all the way out to the gravel there. Easy to do, and I suspect there under brake he's just carried too much speed in towards turn number 13, and the car has let go of him, and he's had to straighten the steering wheel to make sure it doesn't go round and into the barrier. But very quickly then, we need to get a replay of some big moments, and here we go, ladies and gentlemen. What exactly happened firstly to Villa Kotonen? Now, this was Kotonen battling with Bardwell in towards turn number 1. Too wide for the lead of the Procross. A big slide loose there for Villa Kotonen. In the end, were also a discontinuity, and he was able to keep it planted and able to keep on going. But Bardwell took the lead, and he picked up the slowdown as well, which he served as quickly as he could. But then drama at the end of lap number 8. This was Jamie Bardwell in the lead of the Pro class. What went wrong here at turn number 15 is the question, and the answer: took too much apex curb, rear of the car let go, and as it slid along, well, he goes to rejoin. Oh, goodness me, and that's what happened there. And in the end, what brilliant reactions there from Fotis Katios. Indeed, human reactions from him. And unfortunately for Wesley Van Rens, when he came through the corner, he would have seen the yellow flags were waving. However, he wouldn't know where Bardwell's car was, and that's where it all went wrong. This is the on-board from Fotis Katios' perspective. Remember, of course, he's the third car in the line here that's coming into the corner, but he's a bit further back, and suddenly he's going to see a car on the right. He has to fight with oversteer there, and in fact, he had to take to the cross to avoid being collected by Van Rens' car that had been pinballed off of the side of Bardwell's car. A brilliant bit of escapism there for Fotis Katios. Indeed, in another race, he would have got it all wrong. And then we had this big burn for Mikey Story. This was Story coming in towards turns 13 and 14. Through 12 first, then to 13. Went on the brakes, took too much of the outside curve, and in the end, the rear left tyre letting go, and the front left going with it, and the rest of the car said, well, I'll join you for the ride as well. It all went wrong, and we've just had this for Nathan Anstice. There's even more drama playing here. The UK SimRacing Norwich driver, who normally does go well in wet conditions. Well, this was coming in towards turns 9 and 10. The rear of the car letting go in 9, and in the end, a slide went on. Oh my goodness, onto his roof there as he hit the gravel, and was suddenly the whole left-hand side of the car being slowed down, and well, he's like a turtle or a tortoise on its back, not being able to get up, and he'll need someone to turn that car over. He will be towing to the pit lane. But back to live racing we come, and well, we haven't got long left of this one, ladies and gents. We want this to keep on going because this race is keeping us guessing. And meanwhile, the front of the field, with everything happening further behind, you would think that we've completely forgotten about our top 10. Not quite so. Here are your two leaders right now, Ploeg ahead of Nickerson, and Nickerson still keeping the Vulkan Motorsports one driver honest. Benediktas Sinkevicius, meanwhile, he's currently in third place, and with Mark Hutchinson finally cleared, well, he can now try to make sure he's on that podium with Hutchinson, Humphrey and Tomlinson-Dennis all together. It's the battle of the big brash V8s here, albeit, of course, two Mercedes V8s versus one Ford. And right now it's going to be Mark Hutchinson holding on as Humphrey and Tomlinson-Dennis queue up behind. And if you are the third man in this group, well, of course, you've got the double draft. That's great on the straights to an extent, but perhaps not in these conditions. But what you've also got is a lot more spray to contend with. So you're rideable on the dashboard of the 192, and, well, a better run in towards turn number 10 there. But you'll notice the water that's pooling on the apex to the inside of turn 10, and that's where Tomlinson-Dennis doesn't want to go. So he's got to sort of half and half the corner. Humphrey went a bit deep there, but that's by design. He feels more comfortable going deep, following Hutchinson most likely, and Tomlinson-Dennis thinks he's got the momentum at the corner, but he suddenly discovers on exit, actually, I can't cut the line I want because it's too slippery. It's so difficult, and that's the thing with these wet conditions. At a circuit like this at Misano, suddenly the circuit really evolves, and at certain points where you would normally go too wide, you can only go one wide, and it is a very finite line. So you've then got to reinvent the wheel in terms of overtaking. And corners like turns 15 and 16 you see here would not normally be valid overtaking spots unless you've got a huge pace advantage. They suddenly do become overtaking opportunities because the lines through these corners change up dramatically. But no drama between these guys at the match, just concrete racing, and we look forward to seeing what the next step in their battle will be. And you see the big puddles there on the inside in towards turn 1. The rain has stopped by the looks of things, where so that might be a sign we're going to start to head towards drying conditions. Well, as soon as I say that, of course, the rain comes back on the camera. So I don't know what I'm talking about with regards to the weather, but we are expecting by the end of this race, the rain will stop going into race number 2, and it will be cloud with sun for the rest of the day. So it will be a circuit that dries. Meanwhile, Lewis Kenyon here side by side with Thomas Pugh. So this is going to be for 10th place in the elite class, and we'll too wide in towards turn number 1. Kenyon going outside to inside here into 2. Behind them, that is going to be Nick Stubb queuing up, but still Thomas Pugh there side by side all the way through. Kenyon taking the wider line here. He's got the traction in the Porsche. The Porsche known for its abilities in the wet, a bit better than the Mercedes, but Pugh here says, I'm still here, and in the end, he does have his nose slightly cut off there by Lewis Kenyon, but they have got to turn into the corner eventually. Lewis has to as well, and that's why he does it, and Pugh knows there's no malice meant. That is not even a racing incident, that's just good old racing. But further back, we do have Schubert Cardozo up the inside there, and Mike Barber, and credit where it's due to both of these drivers. Cardozo has made a great amount of progress since the start and started right towards the back of the field, and the same for Mike Barber. He started at the very back, and he's up in the 26th place here. He hasn't really gained any elite places other than the one for Ashley Coupland, who is stuck in the pit lane with the car that has been retired from the race. But Mike Barber right now definitely enjoying himself out there, and that's the most important part as he comes down in towards turn number 8 for Quatermass Motorsport. James Howarth a bit further back. He's still trying to chase after Chris Jennings. These two have been fighting each other since day one of this race, and I don't think it's going to be over until they will be seeing that checkered flag as they make their way through the hairpin. But as they roll off, well, meanwhile, we got a bit of drama for David Hutchison and also Brandon Dyer. Here's Brandon Dyer making his way back on the road. Where is David Hutchison? I cannot see him. I think he's towed to the pit lane. We're going to need to replay that when we can, but I suspect David Hutchison's been caught up with Brandon Dyer, or they've had the incident at the same time and it's a coincidence. But meanwhile, back to Jamie Bardwell here, making his way on past Lewis Kenyon, or is he? As now Lewis Kenyon outside to inside here, coming towards turn number 15, and Kenyon showing you why he's an elite driver, as he does hold off the pro driver just about there, and Nathan Anstis a lap down in front will be getting ready to obey the blue flags, because he doesn't have to step aside, but when he's struggling for traction, I suspect he'll just try and get the car off the road. But as he does so, and meanwhile Nicholas Carlson was having a bit of a slow run there, had a bit of, but he's got himself back together in 5th place in the pro class, but he's got a long gap now to Menno Blom of 9 seconds. It might be a bridge too far for him to close down the Swede, albeit his teammate Ville Katonen currently leading in the pro class of Beowulf Racing Team, but he has one problem behind him, and that is Stephen Donning's Ford Mustang has suddenly discovered its wet weather mode, aka the driver has just remembered how quick he could be in the wet, and Donny the Irishman right now on the attack here. And what I do remember him saying at Portimao that we probably would never hear from him again if he was to join us in the interview room in terms of taking a win. Well, he might be able to buck that trend right now, because if he takes this win right now, I'll be contacting him after races saying to Stephen, come on, you know what to do, get in the interview room. But he's going to be keeping his head down right now and thinking of one thing only, which is attacking. But that's a big slide there at the braking in towards turn number 10. Donny's pushing hard here. He's trying to see where the limits are, but even he has his limits, so does his Ford Mustang. And Katonen will be wary of that right now. And if Ville Katonen feels confident in how he's driving, that's all he's got to do at this point. Don't do anything silly. Do not put yourself under extra pressure, as my words completely fall out of my mouth in the wrong order, but you get the idea, because that's where mistakes come in the wet. It's where you start to pressure yourself into thinking you need to drive quicker. Now, yes, this circuit is going to get quicker if a dry line starts to form, but with the top of a rain at the moment, we're not expecting a proper dry line to form for the remainder of this one, really. So therefore, Katonen right now just needs to be sensible. But meanwhile, look at the front of the field. It's going to be Tseard Ploeg and Ryan Nickerson side by side coming through turn number 3 towards 4, and Ploeg holding on for now at least, but Nickerson on the attack here as we look back for the rear of your race leader. And well, these two, they've left the rest of the field behind. They are 10 seconds clear of Sinkevicius, so they really are in a world of their own. But right now, who's going to be the king of their own little world of two? Is it going to be Ploeg or is it going to be Nickerson? Ploeg still ahead at the moment, but Ryan Nickerson still looking at the increasing threat here with only 6 minutes and a final lap to go. We're not going to get too many more laps in here today, but right now Tseard Ploeg, knowing he cannot take his foot off the gas until the very end. If he takes this win, it feels like it's been a hard-earned one at that. But from them, Sinkevicius 9.5 seconds back. He has got a comfortable 3.6 seconds gap to Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, who has found his way up into 4th place. He has been able to get ahead of the trio of what was himself, Hutchison and Humphrey. And well, here's the moves he made in order to get that magic to happen. So this was firstly Milton Tomlinson-Dennis on Mark Hutchison coming up in towards turns 9 and 10, and in the end, what did he do here? Well, they all went deep, and in the end, Tomlinson-Dennis just simply said, right, I'll try and take them both of you if I can. Humphrey went completely deep at the corner, but Tomlinson-Dennis couldn't find his way past Mark Hutchison. He had to do a bit more work to be able to do that, but then on lap number 13, he was able to do it, and this is where he made the move. It was exactly the same corner as they made the way from 8 in towards 9, and in the end, Tomlinson-Dennis, the confidence was building. Hutchison went a little bit wide there on entry, and in the end, he was able to make his way upwards. So Milton Tomlinson-Dennis here moving back to 4th place, covering off Hutchison very sweetly there as well, and in the end, having enough momentum to outrun that Ford Mustang into the braking zone. Well, back to your live racing we come. And as we do, well, there's the man we're just talking about, with Hutchison and Humphrey still close behind, but the gap is growing between the trio, with right now Tomlinson-Dennis trying to leave them to be a duo for the remainder of the race. But 4.5 minutes left on the clock. What else is happening out there? The answer is, in pro, Ville Katonen is still half a second ahead of Stephen Donnelly. Donnelly is with him, but behind, we have got a fight on for 3rd place in pro, because that's Katios versus Blom. They touch coming out of the final quarter. They've got to be careful of that, as Menno Blom takes a big puddle with him. And then Katios does get ahead. Brandon Dyer trying to catch up 2 seconds behind, so keep an eye on him as well. He might interrupt this battle, but right now, at least it is going to be Katios ahead of Blome holding ground, but Menno Blome is feeling confident. He's feeling lucky. And coming through turn number 3, look at the body language of the car, and what you'll see, Blome right now taking a much more aggressive entry line there, but unfortunately the car washes out due to the water on the entry, and well, meanwhile, Vulkan taking much more pronounced lines, taking an outside to in. He's able to avoid the puddles, but that Ferrari, of course, not having the initial traction that the Corvette would have, and there's the difference. But coming through turns 5 and 6, Vulkan there having a much better exit out of the corner sequence. Blome, meanwhile, a lot more patient by comparison, just letting the grip come back to the tyres naturally, which is something he's very good at doing. He is a bit of a tyre whisperer, and when see the catcher's going a bit deep, but look towards the inside of turn 8, and you'll notice actually, whilst there is a little bit of water there, it's nowhere near as much as it used to be. That puddle has gone away, and therefore it could mean that Menno Blome right now, he knows some tricks here, and also look, it's the inside turns 9 and 10, and whilst there's quite a bit of water there, he is a bit more aggressive through 9, does lose about a couple of miles an hour coming through 10, but he really is more confident in where he can put the car, and it may be the confidence that the Corvette is giving him, to be fair. Lovely chassis on the car, and as they come down the backstretch right now, the SimRacing team Lowlands driver wants that podium. He's not out the hunt of it. But coming on to lap number 16, we have got this one plus another one to go. 2 laps remaining. There's been drama further back for Stephen Donnelly and Cy Anthony. We will get a replay of it soon. But meanwhile, there's contact. That's going to be contact between Tseard Ploeg and Ryan Nickerson, and Ploeg is round. And as a result, well, Ryan Nickerson goes on to lead. And I think he wanted to give the place back there, but realised he couldn't right in the middle of the road for Tseard Ploeg. It may not be a win now, but at least he's got himself pointing back in the right direction. He's in second place. With a gap, he's been brought to Benediktas Sinkevicius. Well, he's going to be very comfortable there. That second place will be very much within his realm. But we'll have to see what happens between the two leaders later on, and whether Nickerson potentially gives it back. The camera angle we had there, of course, suggesting it was contact initiated by Nickerson, but that's one camera angle. We don't have all of them. That's what the stewards do. But meanwhile, William Humphrey battling side by side Mark Hutchinson there, 2 wide through turns 4, 5 and 6. A sequence that is absolutely entertaining when you go 2 wide in the dry. 2 wide in the wet doesn't happen through there, and then suddenly they're able to make it happen as meanwhile Hutchinson pulls off racing line, thinking he can defend the inside there all the way through, and then suddenly discovers that's not a good idea because there's so much water there. So instead he has to pull back into the middle of the road. Humphrey gives him the space, and Mark Hutchinson just holds on for a little bit longer, but Humphrey poking, probing, looking left or looking right here, and indeed now thinking about going back to the inside of 9 and realising that Hutchinson's covering him off too much, when he's going to squeeze on in here towards turn number 10, but can he get it stopped in time? The answer is yes. But can he get the traction down now? The answer is no. But in the end, Mark Hutchinson is able to outpower him through the corner. But from there, we do quickly come back to some drama, because this has just happened to Stephen Donnelly and Cy Anthony. On their lap number 15, this was Cy Anthony making his way up towards turns 9 and 10. So I think it's a separate instance here, unless I'm mistaken. Anthony under braking, some rain was coming down, just went straight on. Car around as well. That was Thomas Pugh. So they both got it wrong. And unfortunately, Anthony couldn't go anywhere until Pugh moved. Then we had a separate instance for Stephen Donnelly, who at the time, running very happily in second place in Pro Class. He is still in second place in Pro. But the rear of the car completely letting go there at turn number 13 to 14. But thankfully, Ruby was able to reverse it around and get it pointed back in the right direction immediately. And then we had this moment for Tseard Ploeg versus Ryan Nickerson going through turns 1 and 2. And well, as they made the way through the opening bend, Nickerson on the inside, and it was a tap there between the two by the looks of things. And well, I suspect both drivers, they'll talk about that one after the race. But back to live racing we come. 40 seconds left on the clock. William Humphrey still fighting with Mark Hutchinson for position, and that's going to be Humphrey on the inside there, coming through turns 1, 2 and in towards 3 and 4. Humphrey still there. Hutchinson tries to beat him on the brakes, but Aston Martin's going to be beaten. So then he says, right, go outbrake yourself then. And William Humphrey says, I'm not going to outbrake myself. I'm doing exactly what I want to do. He's holding every line here, absolutely pinpoint precise. And William Humphrey doing everything to hold Mark Hutchinson at bay, but they are fighting each other so hard as the rain is coming down even more. I think the forecast has gone out the window at this point, and we'll make the way down towards turn number 8. Humphrey still just very much ahead, at least for now. But going through turn number 8, is that going to be the end of their fight? We will see. But back to the very front. Ryan Nickerson right now, the split track esports driver, leading by 4 seconds with Tseard Ploeg behind. Ploeg there with Wesley Van Rens in front of him. And Van Rens, of course, now going a lap down after that instant, which did befall him. Coming out to turn 15 in towards 16 earlier on in the race. But it does seem as though the top two right now separated. Nickerson, meanwhile, well, the gap coming down quite drastically here. I wonder if Nickerson's thinking about giving the place back, because that gap has suddenly dropped by 3.5 seconds here. He's going quite slowly. I think Nickerson might be contemplating, unless he's made a major bit error, to be fair, ladies and gentlemen. We won't assume anything, but right now, as he comes in towards the final corner, well, one bend to go, and for Ryan Nickerson on the road at least, it'll be that first win that's eluded him so, but in fact, no, as he comes towards the line, he is going to give the lead up, and he's going to be the gentleman, and Tseard Ploeg will take the victory here at what is the Misano World Circuit for race number 1, elite and overall ahead of Ryan Nickerson, and then they finish as they were when it all went wrong, and then Benediktas Sinkevicius takes 3rd place there, round off the podium for Vulkan Motorsports 1 ahead of Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. William Humphrey takes 5th ahead of Mark Hutchinson. Hayden Miller will come home in 7th place, and then it will be Vulkan who returns to winning ways of the Pro Class. He's going to be absolutely smiling, pleased as punch, and he takes that win in the end for Beowulf Racing Team ahead of Tim Modig, with 2nd in class going to Stephen Donnelly behind, and Tseard rounding off the Pro podium there in 3rd place, 11th overall. Menno Bloem will come home in 12th place there for SimRacing Team Lowlands, ahead of Nicholas Castle, who takes 5th in the Pro Class, and it'll be Lewis Kenyon and Brandon Dyer who complete your top 15, with the Inter-Racing Team driver taking pole position for our final race of the day. Mikey Story struggled to 6th in the Pro Class, but a good effort from him and Nick Stubb, and in your top 20 completed by Alex Fretwell, Liam Fraser and Mark De Vries, with Schubert Cardozo coming all the way through the field from 33rd to 21st. What an effort from him for Inter-Racing Team. That was 11th in the Pro Class. There's some big points coming his way, and well, we've got black flag for Jamie Bardwell for instant points right at the finish, as the rest of our drivers do come up through. I think we've got 1 or 2 cars still to finish. In fact, we've got 1 just left. Here he is. It's James Howard for Dexterous Motorsports MX, who comes to the line there and brings on home 31st place over on the road, and that translates into 18th in the Pro Class. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race number 1 to have here. The rain came back. It came back a little bit more aggressively than we expected, and indeed we've now got 5 minutes before we make our way to the grid again. So you know what we're going to do with those 5 minutes? We're going to walk you through those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as we can see, after an absolutely brilliant opening race of the day and some great sportsmanship being shown right at the end there, Tseard Ploeg, your winner for Vulkan Motorsports 1. But in the end, after his contact with Ryan Nickerson, it looks like it was going to go the way of Nickerson, but he looked back at it in his mind and thought, you know what, I'm going to get towards the finish line, I'm going to give the place back there because I think I'm at fault. And the Split Track Esports driver, as much as he was so close to his first win of the season, he wants to do it the right way, and the Vulkan Motorsports 1 driver given back the lead right at the finish line. So a win for the man who could be champion should he score another 30 points in race number 2 today. And the Split Track Esports driver taking the run-up spot with Benediktas Sinkevicius 3rd there for Vulkan Motorsports 1. A double podium for the Vulkan Motorsports team. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis took 4th for World of Race with STR Esports ahead of William Humphrey and Mark Hutchinson, with a trio fighting hard there to round off the top 6. And behind the Vulkan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing Altitude Freedom Esports V8 machinery, it was then at Vulkan Motorsports 2's Hayden Miller, who was a little bit of a background actor in this one. Vulkan took the win in the Pro Class there with 8th overall for Beowulf Racing Team. He'll be absolutely proud of that. Head of Tim Modig, who finished 9th there, splitting the Pro Class, with the elite driver Sim Coach having a bit of a lonely race in his own regard. Stephen Donnelly took the run-up spot in Pro, even with that late spin for JSD Racing. Not quite the win in the class this time around, but to be fair, he'll be very pleased with that. And then we did see Tseard taking on home. It was the 3rd place spot there for Split Track Esports. And well, what a drive through the field. And qualifying may not have gone quite right, but to be fair, the Ferrari tried doing enough in order to make sure he was on the podium. Menno Bloem took 4th place in the Pro Class there for SimRacing Team Lowlands. 7th ahead of Beowulf Racing Team's Nicholas Castle to round off your Pro top 5. And then in 14th and 15th was Lewis Kenyon and Brandon Dyer. The Vulkan Motorsports 2 and Inter-Racing Team drivers making up your front row for race number 2. And it will be Brandon Dyer on pole position. Mikey Story took 16th there, just missing out on the reverse grid, but still a 6th place in Pro. Some good points for Dexterous Motorsports Kumar driver. Ahead of Nick Starr, Alex Fretwell, Liam Fraser and Mark De Vries to complete your top 20. Outside the top 20 in 21st, it was Schubert Cardozo for Inter-Racing Team coming from 33rd to 21st. What a good effort from him. And we did see Thomas Pugh ahead of Mike Barber, the Quatermass Motorsport driver who started from the very back, finishing in 23rd, ahead of Danny Phillips. Scianti took 25th there, a bit of a frustrating end to his race after it was progressing so well for UK SimRacing Hamilton, but he was ahead of Altitude Freedom Esports' Reece Saunders, the Pro Championship leader, who struggled in qualifying and struggled in the race, with Matthew Bacon there just behind him in 27th. It was Chris Jennings and Adam Baker and James Howard who round off your top 30. Now outside the top 30, in 31st, it was Jamie Bardwell, and then a lap down to Wesley Van Rens, Mark Johnson and Nathan Anstis. And we did see early retirements for David Hutchison and Ashley Coupland. But that was overall. What about in the classes? Because this is where the points are made and paid. And as we see in the elite class, 1, 2, 3 for Tseard Ploeg, Ryan Nickerson and Benediktas Sinkevicius. A podium there, an absolutely brilliant podium between the Vulkan Motorsports drivers and the Split Track Esports machine. Benny and Nickerson able to split them, but not quite able to take that first win. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, 4th there for World of Racing STR Esports, and he'll feel as though that was a a result, definitely worth saving his patience for. He earns that the hard way, that 4th place ahead of William Humphrey and Mark Hutchinson. What a great freeway fight. Hayden Miller there, 7th for Vulkan Motorsports 2, and as we said only months ago, a bit of a side character in that race. He'll be hoping for a big, more of an active role in race number 2. Tim Modig took 8th ahead of Lewis Kenyon, with Brandon Dye round off the top 10, and then it was a length to Thomas Pugh for Access Sport X, who made some good progress early on, ahead of Mike Barber, Danny Phillips, and the retiree of Ashley Coupland. Then to the Pro class, last but by no means least, we're a minute to go before we head to the grid for race 2. Ville Ketonen returns to winning ways for the Beowulf Racing team, and in terms of the last time we saw him take a win, well, you'd have to go all the way back to Daytona, race number 1 in round 2 for that. Indeed, it's been a long time coming. Stephen Donnelly, their runner-up for JST Racing, didn't quite have the pace in the wet here today, but he'll be channeling for it in race number 2, ahead of Fortis Katios, the Splatstrat Esports driver coming all the way through to the podium, and behind his Ferrari was the Corvette of Menno Bloem. Then Nicholas Carlson completed that top 5 there. Not quite a double podium for Beowulf Racing team, but they've got another race to go, with Mikey Story, Nick Stubb, Alex Fretwell, Liam Fraser, and Mark De Vries completing that top 10. Schubert Cardozo was a length there ahead of Cy Anthony, with Reece Saunders struggling to 13th place, but still picking up some points. And it was Matthew Bacon ahead of Chris Jennings. That was your top 15, with the Access Sport X drive followed up by Adam Baker and James Howarth. Jamie Bardwell was your last lead lap finisher, and a lap down it was both Wesley Van Rens, who was on course to the win at one point, versus Bardwell. Unfortunately, both of them having that big coming together. Mark Johnson completed your top 20, and outside the top 20, a lap down as well, Nathan Anstis, and 6 laps down as a retiree, David Hutchison. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's our rundown of the results of race number 1. As the rain runs its way down, we've got a 10-second breather, so we're going to take a quick sip of water. And if you haven't been to the bathroom or got yourself a drink, go do it now, because you haven't got time otherwise, and we're heading to the grid very shortly, and you won't want to miss another 30 minutes of racing action here from Split A's trip to Misano. Well, it's a good thing we got that glass of water in quickly, because here we go to the grid then for our second and final race of the day. On pole position for the top 15 inversion, it is Brandon Dye, elite and overall pole. The InterRacing team driver will be in the company of the man who kept in company for most of race number 1, Lewis Kenyon. The Vulkan Motorsports 2 car will then be followed up by Beowulf Racing Team's Nicholas Carlson, who gets another shot at a chance of victory in the Pro class today, starting 3rd overall, and he's going to be giving it everything he can. Menno Bloem starts in 4th place there for SimRacing Team Lowland, also having an opportunity to take another win this season, but behind the man they need to watch out for, Fortis Katios for Splitstrat Esports, and knowing how bad it's going for Reece Saunders right now, Katios will need to deliver as much damage as humanly possible to his championship rival. The Greek will then be followed up by the Irishman of Stephen Donnelly for JST Racing, who starts 6th. It's an all pair of 2 pro rows, and then we come to a split one. Tim Modig on the left of the grid, starting 7th for SimCoach, and he's going to be in the company of none other than what will be Beowulf Racing Team's Ville Ketonen, your race 1 winner in the Pro class. Hayden Miller and Mark Hutchinson for Vulkan Motorsports 2 and Altitude Freedom Esports complete your top 10, and just behind Hutchinson is going to be the 2 drivers he battled with furiously throughout race 1, William Humphrey there for Vulkan Fasters by Glasstech, and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis for World of Racing with STR Esports. In 13th, it's going to be Benediktas Sinkevicius for Vulkan Motorsports 1, ahead of Ryan Nickerson for Splitstrat Esports, and in Tseard Ploeg completes the inversion, your winner of race 1 overall in the elite class, where he's going to be expecting an even tougher fight now with Nickerson and Sinkevicius, as well as everybody else in front of him, if he wants to make it a perfect score today and take the championship crown. Mikey Story starts 16th there, the next of your pros. 6th in class for Dexterous Motorsports Kumar, ahead of another 2 pro rows of Nick Stubb for Vulkan Fasters by Glasstech Racing, ahead of Alex Fretwell for RLH, and that is your 9th row of the grid, and on the 10th row to complete the top 20, it's Liam Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club and Mark De Vries for SimRacing Team at Lowlands. Outside the top 20, starting 21st, is going to be Schubert Cardozo for the InterRacing team, ahead of Thomas Pugh for Access Sport X. Then we do have Mike Barber for Great Mass Motorsport, ahead of Dexterous Motorsports Command's Danny Phillips. They complete row 12. Row 13, meanwhile, is going to be Cy Anthony for UK SimRacing Hamilton, ahead of Reece Saunders for Altitude Freedom Esports. Then we do have Matthew Bacon for SimCoach, ahead of Chris Jennings for Access Sport X. We have top 30 being completed by Adam Baker for LS Racing, who had a tricky race number 1, and James Howarth, who starts 30th there for Dexterous Motorsports MX. Outside the top 30, 31st, it's Jamie Bardwell looking for redemption after throwing away the win of the race in the Pro class, some would argue, but the Phoenix Racing Red driver can't think back of that. He's got to think forward, and he's going to be in the company of the driver he came into the contact with when it all went wrong. Wesley Van Rens for Pegasus Panthera Racing, starting 32nd. Mark Johnson starts 33rd for Access Sim Sport Y, knowing the gamble to the 6 didn't work the first time out, but can he make it work this time? In fact, no, because everyone's starting on the wet tyre right now. He starts 33rd, with Nathan Anstis giving him company there, 34th on the grid for UK SimRacing Norris, and then it will be the 2 retirees from race number 1 line up on the final row, David Hutchinson for Access Sim Sport X, and Ashley Coutland for Relentless Racing. So that's how the field is set up, ladies and gentlemen. We're only approximately about a minute away now from going green once again. But indeed, what a open race we had. 30 minutes where there was action everywhere you looked, and the thing is now, based on the forecast, the rain has gone away. The circuit is still very much wet. Everybody has started on the wet tyre for this race, but will we see the circuit dry up enough? Will anybody potentially gamble on going to the slicks? I doubt it, but what I do expect is the fact that our drivers will find that as this circuit dries, those wet tyres are going to get increasingly hot, and it's going to become a race just as much about tyre management as it is going to be about being the quickest out there. And keeping those wet tyres alive could prove very valuable in the closing stages of the race. However, as they all tiptoe their way up towards turns 12, 13 and 14, we say hello there to Matt Watkins, also there to Martin Renders, who says let's go Stub, and we also say hello there to Fenakisto, who says when the track is this wet, are they doing laps or lengths? Indeed, a very good joke there. I do love that, to be fair, and indeed I'm going to have to make sure I keep that one in my back pocket one day. Thank you very much, sir. Hope that you haven't copyrighted and trademarked that, otherwise I'll have to pay you royalties. But as everyone gets themselves set, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're not too far away from going racing for the final time today, as we also say hello to Just Matt Sim there, and also to Evelyn Neveyenkler, I do believe, although I'm quickly pronouncing that name. Indeed, we need to quickly look back to the front, ladies and gentlemen, because here comes Brandon Dyer as he makes way for the final quarter to take us to the green for our final 30 minutes of racing action. And it's lights out and away we go for the second time today as the field roars its way away. Brandon Dye gets a good start there as Lewis Kenyon's caught napping to a degree, but coming in towards turn number 1 right now. Well, the whole field comes in, and all the pros in that mid-pack, they're the ones you've got to watch out for. They'll all be poking and probing each other and hoping they can find a way against some of the elites. But all this field right now, 2 by 2 as they make their way through the few bends. But as they start to come down now, in towards turn number 4 where things will get enticingly tight. But who exactly is going to be leading the way into that brain zone? Well, Nicholas Carlson right now under pressure. 3 wide, there's Catcher, splits the seas, and he tries to do his best Moses manoeuvre, but it doesn't quite work out. If anything, he knocks one of the wave sideways. That's been a Blome elbowed out there, and Carlson still holds on, and Stephen Donnelly squeezes his way through. So I don't think Blome's going to be too happy about that one, but the good news is he hasn't really fallen too far back, even if he's lost a place or two. But going onwards, oh, there's a car to the barrier there, almost they survive it. And that's Mikey Story and Tim Modig, I do believe, who both just about avoid going to the barrier. They come back on safely. Well done to them for avoiding it. But I wonder if there was contact or whether it was just the exit curb of turn number 6 catching them out. Well, either way, well, things have gone sideways, but not too bad. Meanwhile, is that Mike Barber up into 19th place? Yes, it is. That is the Quemus Motorsport car. 20th, in fact, now battling with Mark DeVries. Mike Barber's had a flying start to this race. He's moving forward. Meanwhile, it's going backwards for Fotis Katios. He's been turned at turn number 10. Now, as that was over volition, he goes to restart the car. He can't, sad. He wants to, but in the end, he's got to be patient here. We all have been there, Fotis. You just got to wait. And in the end, he finally gets himself going. He sees some space to get it turned. And with the Greek driver there definitely itching, because he knows right now, with a good result today, he can really level the championship, but that's not the way he's wanted it to go. Meanwhile, Brandon Dyer goes wide at turn number 13, and suddenly, Lewis Kenyon takes the lead of the race. Nicholas Carlson all over the back of it right now, the pro leader here, trying to make sure he puts the elite drivers between himself and the other pro. Stephen Donnelly here, he's not done. The GT3 Racing driver trying to go around the outside there, Brandon Dyer. In the end, it doesn't work, and with Menno Blome right behind him now. Well, Menno Blome, I can tell you one thing, ever since he's been split away from what was that fight for second place, he's suddenly right now really turning up a big bit of pace. And we're coming on to the start of this straight here. Here comes Blome looking up the inside onto lap number 2, into turn 1 he goes, and well, Menno Blome right now, I don't know what they've given him midway through the races. Indeed, there's a saying, of course, isn't there, in football or soccer, which is all about the half-time oranges. Well, whatever he's had at half-time today, well, right now is absolutely fired him up, and the Dutchman is absolutely on a charge here. And well, I don't think he's gone to his local coffee shop between the races, otherwise he might be investigated after the race for performance-enhancing drugs. We're coming down through turn 4 into 5 right now. The Dutchman absolutely on a roar here, and gets it ready to go in towards the left-hander of turn number 6. He'll be thinking to himself he can settle one down at this point. But Ryan Nickerson and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis all in a long line, with Vela Katonen just in front. Katonen, of course, the winner of race 1 in the pro class. Well, right now all he needs to think about is working with these elite drivers where he can. Nickerson, meanwhile, wants to get clear, and well, he's going to give up the spot there. Vulkan to Nickerson. William Humphrey is the next mark for Nickerson to take on, a fellow elite driver, but meanwhile in the lead. Ooh, that's a little bit of a snake around there for none other than Nicholas Carlson. Under braking they go, and in the end, rolling the way out to turn number 10. Carlson gets ahead. It's going to be a smooth move here in that Lamborghini. Just turns a little bit of pace. Lovely bit of a run there for the number 8 driver, and suddenly Nicholas Carlson's not just leading in pro, he's leading overall. Now, can he bring this home as he goes very wide at turn number 12? Surely not. He gets it back on, but Lewis Kenyon says, right, I'm having that back straight away. And a little bit of over-enthusiasm there, and Nicholas Carlson cost himself the chance to try and break away, but right now he knows he's got the pace. He shouldn't be throwing this away. Indeed, all the team will be on the radio to him. All the fan group from Beowulf Racing will be praying right now Nicholas Carlson just gets it together, because we know he can win this. Meanwhile, William Humphrey still battling with Menno Blome. Suddenly, all the pro drivers here, they're all finding so much pace versus the elite drivers. It seems as though the pros have got the right setups of the car. Meanwhile, right now, the elites are struggling versus them, and going on down the start-finish straight here until lap number 3. Well, here comes Ryan Nickerson. He wants an opportunity to take on William Humphrey, looking around the outside. But keep in mind, of course, that right now this circuit is very much wet. As time goes on, it will start to dry. And Nickerson on the inside here, and it might be the difference of setups between drivers here. Some drivers may have gone for a wet setup. That's why they've got so much pace right now, but they know the tyres will go away for them later. And Carlson being passed there by Brandon Dyer, and we'll run the way through turn 4 right now. Stephen Donnelly is right back there with him, as we do say hello there to Joe Sparrow in the YouTube chat. And right now, well, there is Stephen Donnelly looking up the inside. He's going to try and go for it. He gets Carlson to run a little bit deep, and then has to back off his own. There's plenty of fighting happening further down the field, ladies and gentlemen. We will try and come to it when we can, but right now the top 10, the top 15 is absolutely on a knife edge here, as there's all more coming down to the braking zone. That is in the meanwhile Mark Hutchinson under pressure, as that's going to be Milton Tomlinson-Dennis up his inside. We'll also see there Benediktas Sinkevicius trying to make it 3 wide, as in the foreground of the camera shot there was William Humphrey being passed by Ryan Nickerson. He has cleared him, and you can see that at the bottom of your screen right now. But meanwhile, we can see Milton Tomlinson-Dennis has cleared Hutchinson and Sinkevicius, with Ploeg and Miller behind. Tseard Ploeg's not making too much progress right now, and in terms of where he needs to finish in order to be able to take the championship crown today, after the winning race number 1, he needs to finish in elite, if my memory serves me correctly, in 4th place if he wants to get this done. Although don't quote me on that, I'm not 100% certain, and we will only say if he does finish. I know if it's 2nd or higher, he definitely does take it, so therefore that's what we're going to roll with at least for now. We'll check it if we can, if we've got time, but we may not have time to do so. Meanwhile, going further back, and to Matthew Bacon right now, he's over the back of Jamie Bardwell, and always a bit late on the brakes there, contact to the rear of the Mercedes driver. Bardwell's elbowed wide, and as a result, or nudged wide we should say, he's allowed to rejoin there, and Bacon immediately does not capitalise on it, gives him the place back, as Bardwell does pick up a slowdown for taking the excess track limit, but in turn now Bacon makes sure not to gain anything there, as Thomas Pugh has to back off as well, so they form a long queue. So fighting further behind as well, things are getting intense here, as meanwhile Nathan Anstis trying to recover after a dismal end to his race 1, but David Hutchinson goes round in front of him, does a 360-degree spin, and in the end the 21 driver gets him pointed right back in the same direction as he was going, and Nathan Anstis there will take up the place, but I don't think he's going to be too surprised at the fact that was very close. That's definitely one of the proverbial brown trousers about survivors of the C1. Francis Gatchell's on the recovery drive there, he's up into 31st. Where's Reece Saunders for comparison? Saunders is only in 26th. The Ultra Freedom Esports driver here is not making any progress at all, so therefore right now Francis Gatchell could be on the back of it before the end of this race, and if so, that's going to lead to absolute fireworks. Meanwhile, speaking of fireworks, there's your leader coming to pass us, Lewis Kenyon, and meanwhile behind that is Dyer and Carlson. We can see Stephen Donnelly there trying to get on to the inside, trying to use what is Nicholas Carlson as a little bit of a taxi to make his way through, as we ride aboard here with the Irishman. And well, right now this Ford Mustang is starting to come alive, but Nicholas Carlson, as I say earlier, he's absolutely ripping up the tarmac right now. The only problem is he goes very deep there. Stephen Donnelly, if he sees the doors open, he's going to try and open it even further, but as they come out the corner, you can see right now this circuit, whilst the circuit is still quote-unquote wet, it is drying quite quickly, and therefore the drivers are now getting more explorative with lines. There's no single line anymore. There's a lot more room to go racing. You can overtake off line, even into where they used to be puddles. Those puddles are mostly gone in terms of how large they were. Indeed, you can see the puddles a lot more clearly now. This is making things even more interesting. And Stephen Donnelly really showing that the fact he's so brave right now looking up into turn 14. He just knows he can go there and not have to worry about the car aquaplaning and not understeering on. But further back in this long train of cars, we can see Mark Hutchinson and Hayden Miller together with Benediktas Sinkevicius and Tseard Ploeg as a bit of swap. Oh, who's that going around? That's Tomlinson-Dennis. MTD is around into the grass. It's all gone wrong coming out of turn 15. And right now he's trying to get the car restarted. Can he get it it rolling? Yes, he can. So he doesn't get beached in the grass. He does not add himself to the weeds. And meanwhile, the seas split around him there. That is going to Wesley Van Ren's going up his inside, me on his outside. It's going to be Mark Johnson. And in the end, Mark Johnson's going to go a bit too deep. And Reece Saunders is collected. I can't believe it for the championship leader. This is the nightmare round. It's all gone wrong. He goes back onto the road. Oh, goodness me. As they all come and past him in the end. I don't... Oh, there's contact to the back of Saunders' car. That's Howarth onto the back of him. And Saunders is into the barrier. I think let's give it a toe to the pits. And if it is for Reece Saunders, suddenly it's going to be almost level going into the season finale, or as close as it possibly can be. Saunders will still have a lead, understandably, but suddenly Fotis-Katios, if he can really turn up the wick right now, he can do some huge damage. And suddenly that Pro Championship may not be over at Imola until it is really, truly over. Well, we'll have to see what's to come. But right now, for Reece Saunders, understandably, as the car's towed, it's going through the faster pair. Given the fact he was right next to the pit lane, well, it is going to be a situation for him where now he's got to try and figure out what he can do to see any points today, if at all. As we see Villa Katonen coming through. Oh, and it's a big side loose there for Villa Katonen. He's lost a rear of it after taking such a successful race one. The pro man who was in full place, the class, he's going to fall all the way to the back. I don't believe it right now. This race is just full of drama. It's full of surprises, and we're not even halfway through. There's going to be more of this before it all is said and done, and that's when we take a look back at some of the big moments from the start of this race. And speaking of which, we will start to get replays shortly, but when can we? That's the problem, because there's so much fighting going on right now. There's William Humphrey up the inside, Nicholas Carlson. Carlson still holding Stephen Donnelly at bay, but Donnelly this time even closer as they come through turn 15 for the 5th time in this race today. And Carlson right now 9. All he's got to do is maintain momentum at this point and make sure that Stephen Donnelly doesn't get too close. But look at the lines Donnelly's taking. What he's trying to do, Donnelly, is he's really now putting the car deep into the corner. He wants to get the launch out the corner, and knowing there's more traction available. But meanwhile, well, gaining traction here is Brandon Dyer looking to go on the attack, but Ryan Nickerson will take the place off of him and take a second place elite and overall. So Nickerson now into the penultimate spot. He's got one more to go. Will this be the day when Ryan Nickerson finally takes that first win? He's taken 2 third places on the podium this season. He's never been second. He's never won at VIR. He was close to it. It didn't come. Race number 1 here is close to it, but in the end made contact and gave the place back. Can he finally do it? Will he finally find a way through, or will Lewis Kenyon be able to hold him back? But heading on down in towards turn number 10 right now. Well, Nickerson definitely doing everything in his power, but Brandon Dyer is looking very threatening behind him. It's not one accurate, it's another. But as these drivers start to come down for a brief moment, that gives us an opportunity to take a look back at some of the big moments for the start of this race, starting with what happened to Reece Saunders on lap 1. So this was as our drivers made the way in towards turn number 2. Saunders right in the middle to back of the field. He did try to squeeze his way through and came into contact there with Schubert Cardozo. The two come together. Oh, goodness me. And that was a turnaround there as well for another car. And that led to a queue. Chris Jennings had to stamp on the brakes as well. Well, a bit of disaster there. And that was Danny Phillips being turned. So Cardozo and Saunders coming together. And then there was the rest. Meanwhile, we had this big moment for Mikey Story on the opening lap, where things went very backwards. And it was going through turns 4, 5 into 6. Tim Modig also suffers. It was 3 wide just in front there off camera. Modig turned sideways, and then Story collected with him, and I don't think Modig had anywhere to go at that point, so understandably Story got caught up with him. And then towards the end of lap 1, this was up at turns 9 and 10. Fotis-Katios on a mission to charge, looking for a move on Nicholas Carlson. Went onto the brakes here, went deep, went deeper, and in the left side tyres both touched what was the white line. Oh, and that was almost there and around for Menno Blom as well. And Fotis-Katios in the end went to rejoin, but then realised you can't rejoin as much. He was desperate too, and well, the frustration building. We had this for Adam Baker on lap number 2. Things went very wrong for him as well at the exact same call of LS Racing, but what exactly went wrong is the question we need an answer to. The answer is he went in deep initially, went to that curb, and after that the rest was history for the LS Racing car that does really looks like a HKS racing machine. But then we had this big moment for MTD on lap number 4. And as Milton Tomlinson-Dennis was chasing after Menno Blom at the time, went into 15, went a little bit wider than normal, and that was enough to upset the rear of the car, went spin on the round, rolled backwards, and in the end managed to park it literally on the barrier, so picking up no damage at all, but unfortunately the damage to his race was sizable. Then we had this for Reece Saunders at the end of lap 4 as well. So this was Saunders on a recovery. And Milton Tomlinson-Dennis there in the middle of the road as everyone parted the seas around him. Saunders came out the corner. A tap there with the Aston Martin. I do believe that might have been the car there, unless I'm mistaken, of what was Mark Johnson. And in the end, Saunders went round, went to rejoin. And unfortunately there, James Howarth not having the grip to react in time, hit Saunders on the back. And for Saunders, it was all said and done. And then we just had this for Villa Katonen. This was Katonen getting it wrong, both at the time battling for a podium spot in the Pro class, and we're in towards turns 9 and 10. The corner sequence that's caught out so many today in the middle of the road, and the rear of the car just simply letting go. Well, we're going to let these replays go, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to get back to some live racing. But as we do see Brandon Dyer coming out to turn number 14 in towards 15. Right now, he's still watching there, Lewis Kenyon. He's falling back behind William Humphrey almost. And in fact, Ryan Nickerson has taken the lead of this race. We need a replay of that, and we are going to get one. We promise you that as soon as we can, because right now Nickerson has taken lead. He's running away with it. Well, how exactly did he get it done? Here is a quick replay. We go back in time to lap number 6. And this is while we're in replay mode. That was Lewis Kenyon in front in there. Kenyon went a little bit wide through 15, and for Nickerson, this was all or nothing under brake, and he went all in, and he got the move done there, and Kenyon had no response. And for Ryan Nickerson, what a dive to the inside, and the rest of the field followed suit. So now, Ryan Nickerson into lead. Can he pull away? Can he run away with this one and bring it on home for Split Strike Esports? William Humphrey has cleared Kenyon as well. Or will we see the Vulkan Motorsports by Glass Step Racing Car Sonny try to spoil the party on the very top of the podium? Remember, Nickerson has been in this position now twice today. But with the first time around, of course, it was that contact with Tseard Ploeg, but this time he's going to absolutely go for it. But as these drivers push on, well, right now Nickerson absolutely clean as a whistle there with regards to how that played out. Lewis Kenyon not having the grip to fight it, but Nicholas Carlson, meanwhile, at the back of this elite group, the Beowulf a racing team driver, definitely hits wide. I think with Tseard Ploeg behind, thinking, you know what, I need to bring this home. But can he do so when Stephen Donnelly is going to try and seize on anything that happens? And the answer is, well, yes, at the moment at least, as Ploeg just about outruns Carlson out of the corner, but heading onwards as we're hearing that Milton Tomlinson-Dennis has been involved in a follow-up incident and seen him towed to the pit lane due to damage on the car. But Carlson, at least for now, is keeping it comfortably together with Donnelly and Menno Blum behind. Menno Blum, of course, third in the Pro class. He held off Villar-Katonen, and SimRacing Team Lowlands driver, he's not out of this yet, as Mark Hutchinson and Benediktas Sinkevicius are getting firm with each other behind him. A bit further back, we do see that Alex Fretwell, Nick Stubb and Liam Fraser together. They've all started to come through the field with Jamie Bardwell in close company with them. Mark Hutchinson's had a bit of hold up a second. We've had an instant. There's Mark Hutchinson parked up. Benediktas Sinkevicius, I think, was caught up with him, but Hutchinson's come off the worst for Altitude for him Esports. It's gone backwards for him, but it's going forward for so many other drivers. And Liam Fraser, side by side with Jamie Bardwell. Bardwell on the inside there in towards turn 16. And the Phoenix Racing red car does squeeze on through past Fraser. That's now up into 6th place in the Pro class as we head towards the halfway point of this race. And we show you the class standings at the very front here of your picture. That is going to be Fretwell versus Stubb. Alex Fretwell just holding on for now. And coming through the left-hander 2 in towards 3. I think it's going to be a question of when, not if, Stubb is going to be able to make a move here. And if so, well, where is he going to go for it exactly? Would it be into a corner such as turn number 4? Potentially. But of course, the Porsche will be stronger through here. But you can see Stubb, he's a lot more confident with regards to braking compared to Fretwell. Such was the nature in which he concertinaed into the back of him. But as Jamie Bardwell now gets close, we jump aboard here with the Phoenix Racing at a red car, and we'll take a bit too much exit curb. That's not going to help the traction on the wheels. Unfortunately, we do have confirmation of a retirement for Milton Tomlinson-Dennis for this race, ladies and gentlemen, which is sad given how things had gone in race number 1, how it started to go in race 2. But still, hopefully we'll see it at Imola as well, and hopefully we'll have some better luck there. I mean, we've also lost in this race at David Hutchinson and at Reece Saunders, so we have 3 drivers down at the moment. We still have 33 runners, the lowest of which is Chris Jennings at this time. But staying here on board with Jamie Bardwell, he's trying to knock on the door for what would be none other than 4th place in the Pro class. First it's Stubb, then it would be Fretwell, but he's got Liam Fraser staying with him, and Mike Barber's coming up to this group. Barber sneaking his way up the order, and indeed right now, much like the Kratos Motorsport Ninja, well, he's hoping that he's going to have an opportunity to perhaps move towards Hayden Miller and Benediktas Sinkevicius right at the end of the race, should anything befall them. We do, of course, have an incident with regards to Sinkevicius and Hutchinson we need to understand, but right now Bardwell is trying to give us an understanding. Oh, there's contact in the rear of Stubbs' car. Bardwell here, a lot of confidence, but the problem is, as much as you can be that confident when you are running this close to each other, you can't use that confidence to lead on another car, and that's why he backed off immediately, because Stubb would have gone round if he pushed his luck at all. And well, the Vulkan Motorsports by Glass Tech driver definitely getting a message there from Bardwell, which is, I have a lot more pace than you, but understanding Bardwell's now got to think, right, I've got the pace, how do I beat him in this race? That's the harder part, but he's got to have patience here. Indeed, that's the way you make your way on through. We'll run away for returns of 1 and 2. A bit further back there, we do see Villar-Katonen ahead of Story, Modig and Anthony and Hutchinson at the moment. Mark Hutchinson on the recovery drive then after what was a bit of an instant befell him. But we can see back to Stubb versus Bardwell as they come towards 3 and 4. Where it goes with Bardwell looking up the inside again. Stubb goes deep this time, but does he go deep enough for Bardwell? Bardwell does put himself on the inside of 5, but he'll be on the outside of 6. It's not going to work there, but this is all about positioning right now. And Jamie Bardwell has got to be patient as much as he possibly can. He can't afford to essentially get too eager to make this happen, otherwise he will in the end lose out. But coming into that braking zone, he's going to try, and this time Stubb does go even deeper, and Bardwell's going to try and cut it all the way around the outside. Is he going to be able to get it done? And the answer is going to be no. He's made to wait just a little bit longer. Stuff right now definitely hanging on by a thread. And well, coming in towards turn number 10 this time. They come through. Stuff goes deep. Bardwell on the inside. But of course that Mustang won the better exit line. But Bardwell tries to shut the door in his face. And Nick Stubb says, you can't do that. I'm alongside you in this race. So drag race up towards turn 13 they go. Stubb on the outside of him. He's got to turn for a much wider corner. How wide will Bardwell make his car to make Stubb's life a misery? The answer is not too much. He's not confident himself here through the high-speed bend. Stubb breaking on the outside. He's never going to be able to stop and make it too wide all the way towards 14. And Jamie Bardwell finally makes the move happen. But goodness me, that took him an eternity there for all the right reasons. Meanwhile, back to Lewis Kenyon versus Tseard Ploeg. And Kenyon giving up the spot to Tseard Ploeg. And right now, based on where these two are together, if Tseard Ploeg was to finish third in this race, which is where he is, he would be your provisional elite champion for season 11. He would do enough based on the points as we understand it. So therefore for Tseard Ploeg right now, all he's got to do is keep things together and not make any mistakes at this point. Brandon Dyer meanwhile will chase down the two of them. He's not concerned about the championship. All he's concerned about is the idea of trying to pick up some more points if he can, but of course that's got to be all part of his master plan here. And in terms of what his pressure he's got behind, well, he's got another Nicholas Carlson there, the pro leader. He's got Stephen Donny for close company, and it's going to be quite the pitch between those drivers. But heading in towards the next braking zone, well, Dyer's going to go up the inside immediately on Lewis Kenyon, and well, different postcodes there, braking zones. Brandon Dyer is so much more confident and able to lunge on the inside for the most part about 25 metres. But Lewis Kenyon in a much smoother exit line, that's what keeps him ahead on the outside. Indeed, right now Brandon Dyer showing that Acura's got so much potency under braking in the wet. As the circuit continues to dry up, we are really starting to gravitate towards now a circuit where the spray's minimal, and we are going to be seeing drivers on wet tyres shortly that are going to be spiking in terms of temperature. This is now the danger zone for these tyres, where they've got to try and find water on the circuit to cool them down, because if they get too hot, what you start to do is rip the tread off the tyre. You turn it into a worn down slick effectively, and well, that tire's going to have zero grip whether it's in the wet or the dry at that point. So tyre temperatures become an increasingly important factor, and that's why Nicholas Carlson right now would ideally like the two in front of him, the two elites, to stop fighting and get a move on, because the problem he's got is that Stephen Donnelly is very close behind him in the battle for the lead of the pro class, and Menno Blum 2.5 seconds back is watching at a distance. But from them, oh, hold up a second, there's all changed. That's Lewis Kenyon on around there. Was there contact with Brandon Dyer? We look away for a brief moment, and suddenly Kenyon's backwards into the gravel, under braking over to turn 16. I suspect something's gone wrong. Well, we owe you a replay to some big moments, and well, we are going to bring you those just after we see whether Science's able to take 8th place in the pro class of Mikey Story. The answer is yes, he can. Tim Modic and Mark Hutchinson queued up behind, but will Story get a comeback here in towards turn 1? 9, of course, that with the way this race has gone, the fact he's ahead of Fotis Katios right now, he could gain some points in the championship, and the answer is he won't be able to make that move. But we're going to get a quick couple of replays, starting with what happened to Mark Hutchinson and Benediktas Sinkevicius on lap 8. Now, this was in turns 13 and 14. Hutchinson in the end nailed the corner into 14. Sinkevicius went wide, went onto the brakes, and in the end, it was a tap to the rear of Hutchinson's car that sent him around, as Sinkevicius had to carry on. They could not park up in the road and wait for Hutchinson to get back on the road, otherwise they would have caused a traffic jam. So for Mark Hutchinson, understandably, he's be very frustrated at that one. And then we've just had this big moment only months ago for Lewis Kenyon. What exactly went wrong for him? Well, it's Brandon Dyer closing up to him, coming through 15. A big slide there for Kenyon. That might be the start of the story. Dyer on the outside there, lose it of his own accord. They get hooked on each other, and then Lewis Kenyon spat out into the gravel there. Both cars getting caught on one another, and well, as much as it does look as though Brandon Dyer has caused a major incident there, you have to keep in mind, of course, that's exaggerated the fact that the cars both coming loose at that point, and therefore, whilst Brandon Dyer may have been the antagonizer and it was his car that Kenyon was turned around, in the end, the physics of the cars there, one of them was going to go to gravel, if not both, either way. They couldn't decouple at that point, and unfortunately for Lewis Kenyon, he was the worst off of that. But meanwhile, we come back to live racing. 9 minutes left to include the final lap that's got to be done. And right now, Mikey Story losing places, hand over fist here as Benediktas and Hutchinson have found their way up past him. Meanwhile, just at the head of this group, Nick Starr trying to keep Kotonen and Anthony behind him, holding on for 6th place in the Pro class. At the very front of Pro, Carlson and Donny have now split a little bit. The gap between the two of them is 1.1 seconds. So it's looking as though Nicholas Carlson may be safe for the Pro lead now, at least for now. But of course, anything can happen. It has happened so far today. We can expect even more to happen at some point in this race. And we have had confirmation in our ear that right now, so long as Tseard Ploeg finishes in full for hire in this race, he will be your provisional champion in the elite class. So therefore, he's doing more than enough. Just giving you an update there. Otherwise, in the Pro class, with Rhys Saunders having the mother of all nightmare days with his retirement in this race and a dismal race one, the Pro Championship is definitely going to Imola, where Fotis Katsios not being up in the big points paying positions at the moment. It might be still advantage Rhys Saunders by a sizable degree. As, hold up a second, we've got a car dropping down the order. That's Hayden Miller who's gone round. Oh, goodness me, the Vulkan Motorsports 2 driver right now after what was heroics and the Nürburgring last time out. Well, right now it's definitely not heroics here today. It's gone all backwards as Mikey Story up the inside there. So Anthony Bill can't find a way through. Meanwhile, big look on the inside there for Bart Hutchinson on Tim Modig. That's not going to happen as Modig takes that outside line with confidence. So he stays ahead. But Hayden Miller's gone backwards there. And me on the rear of the pitch, we've got more fighting. That is Matthew Bacon versus Liam Fraser for 10th place in the Pro class. And Bacon right now holding on, albeit Fraser in the end going a little bit too deep, so Bacon by holding on to that inside line is going to get an advantage on the exit. The Porsche can get the power down sooner. Been a drag race all the way along now. Well, that Mercedes will gradually outpace the Porsche over long distances. A long enough straight here for the Mercedes to gain its advantage, and actually queues up behind the two Pro drivers here in the Elite 146. And he'll be thinking to himself, oh goodness, I've got to pit way past them all again. But as a relentless racing driver gets ready to try and look for a move, he's very late on the brakes there compared to Bacon. That's not because Bacon is braking early by design, but actually Cooper's got a lot more confidence. And right now, understanding, I think his car, he's probably saying to himself, come on, Matthew, I need you to brake a lot later than that. And we'll come through 15 to 16. Coulter right now gets a better run out the corner. Surely he's going to look to the inside. Yes, he is. But unfortunately, we're in such a tight line. But thankfully, Bacon goes wide. So actually Coulter will take the place off it there and to pressure Bacon into a mistake. And that pressure definitely being well applied. But as they head on to their next lane, that's lap number 14, we look up the road. And to side Anthony's got Hayden Miller right in his rear. And well, as those two drivers try to get themselves settled down, meanwhile, Tim Modig and Bart Hutchinson still fighting in the midst of all the Pro drivers. There's Villa Kotonen in front of them and Mikey Story behind the pair. So therefore, it's getting very close, it's getting very personal between them. And remember, these two elites are fighting over 8th in class and 15th overall. Now, Kotonen will be great for the elites, so next they give it the comfort gap to Story, at least for now. But coming down that stretch, well, it's going to be an opportunity here for somebody to make a move under braking, but will anybody actually go for it? The answer is no, as meanwhile Stephen Donnelly is falling backwards here. That's a pass. It was turn 10 being attempted by Brandon Dyer, albeit we know that inside line you get better traction than a mid-engine rear-wheel drive or a rear-engine rear-wheel drive car initially, but then on the straight, front-engine rear-wheel drive machines such as the Mustang could outrun the car that's inside, but not so for Stephen Donnelly here, and in the end it's a poor run through 13. You can see Sinkevicius look up the inside. There's further contact between the two, and Sinkevicius right now, he carries on, but it's a similar moment to what happened here between himself and Bart Hutchinson, and suddenly Stephen Donnelly is around. He falls down and Menno Blow moves into second in the Pro class. So Stephen Donnelly was looking to be an opportunity to try and make it another win of the season. Well, now it's fallen out of his hands, and Menno blowing 4 seconds up the road for Stephen Donnelly. He's going to be absolutely fuming at that. He was losing pace to Nicholas Carlson, but I suspect he wanted to lose the race with his own volition, not have it in contact with an elite driver. But still, it's happened. He's got to regroup now as he pulls over to the racing line, and Lewis Kenyon here wants to try and find his way on through, but Kenyon right now doesn't have the pace to do so. Lewis Kenyon has fallen off the cliff of pace, and I suspect right now it's the tyres that are going away, and a lot of drivers might be starting to struggle with tyres that are definitely worn down. As Menno Blown now all over the back of Sinkevicius here, trying to fight his way past. And well, the second place Pro driver still wants to go hunting after Nicholas Carlson, who's 5.7 seconds up the road for Menno Blown. This race is not over yet, not until he sees that finish line. So he's definitely got the confidence right now that he thinks he can go on the attack. Tim Modig still fighting about Hutchinson. They have swapped places since we last left them, but Modig on the inside there, but it's not going to work out. That's a probe, a poke, but Hutchinson does not respond to it and instead stays there, but going all the way through. the corners right now. Well, that's getting very sideways there. That's going to be Villar to lose that. That's Mikey Story now on the attack. And Will Story here is going to get himself to the inside. Here they come down towards turn number 8. Story's going to go all in here for 7th place in the Pro Class. He has to. He needs to make the most of this opportunity. He needs every point he can to try and gain some ground on Fotis Katios and even on Reece Saunders here in the championship in that fight for the top 3. But right now, Mikey Story makes the move there, but Villar still sticks with him in towards turns 9 and 10. Does he get stopped here into the elongated hairpin? The answer is yes, he does. Now, whilst they're all fighting, what's happening at the very front of the field? That's sideways there for Ryan Nickerson. Well, it's not over yet because Ryan Nickerson last lap was 7/10 slower than William Humphrey. Humphrey is turning up the wick now, and we suspect it is because the circuit is drying out so rapidly that suddenly for Nickerson the tyres are going against him. That last lap, 4/10 was the delta, and well, these tyres come on through. And turns 1, 2 and 3. Well, right now, Ryan Nickerson definitely, I think, feeling as though the pressure is building up here. William Humphrey, well, the Vulkan Motorsports last step racing driver at the Nürburgring, the pace wasn't there. He had, the pace was there, I should say, but the strategy wasn't there, and therefore it ruined his pace later on in the race distance. Here today, race number 1, definitely a fun race, but race number 2, this has been one of his better races in these wet conditions. And for William Humphrey, he's got this lap plus 1 more. Can he steal away the win from Ryan Nickerson? Can he stop the Canadian driver taking his first ever win this season, or will Ryan Nickerson be able to hold on? It's close. Tseard Ploeg, meanwhile, in 3rd there. He knows that right now he's on his way to the elite crown provisionally, and Nicholas Carlson behind there in 4th place is on his way to his first pro win of the season. We've not got long left in this race, ladies and gentlemen. It is a race that has kept us guessing every step of the way. There's still some guesswork to be done, and look at this from Mike Barber. He's come all the way through the field from 23rd to 12th, 7th right now in the elite class. He's on the back of Jamie Bardwell. He's got no pressure from elites around him at this point, but to finish 7th, this would be his best result of the season. It would be his best drive of the season by far, and he owes it all just to consistency and avoiding drama, which in each conditions, that's what you've got to do. But back to leaders here. That's at turn 14, and right now Nickerson is really struggling. William Humphrey is all over the back of him as they roll the way off the corner, and it was turns 15 and 16. I think it's a question of when, not if, a move is going to come here, and Nickerson right now has got to be ready for it. What life has he got on the tyres of that Ferrari, if any at all? William Humphrey, meanwhile, that explains the delta. Nickerson went for a wet setup on the basis that if he took the lead early on enough, he would be able to bolt away. William Humphrey, meanwhile, has gone for a more conservative setup and approach with driving the car. He's protected the tyres. Now he's got this final lap 17 to 17 to this one, where he can use all the tyre compound. He's got an Aston Martin that's absolutely compliant, and now he's just got to find the place to be able to make the move. But as Nickerson there, make sure that Humphrey can't find the way through in turns 2 and 3. It's for he's too far back right now. It's the British driver, and therefore he's going to have to just wait. Gets very close there, and Nickerson right now drags the car through turn number 4. That's one thing you can do. You park it on apex. As long as you're not going dangerously slow, you can get away with it. And come through turns 5 to 6 right now. William Humphrey there being slightly put off balance by seeing Nickerson just park the car on the apex, but it's worked out. It has bought Nickerson a half-second gap, and coming down towards turn number 8. Well, now Humphrey's got to think to himself, okay, he's going to play that game. I need to get a very good corner exit before the straight. I need to get past him before turn number 14, because otherwise he'll drag the car through the last couple of corners. Or could Humphrey try to get Nickerson to outbrake himself? That's always another fault. But as we continue to ride aboard here for a little bit longer, coming in towards turns 9 and 10, all the water was there has completely gone. It's now on the curbs, if any at all. So therefore, for William Humphrey, it's all about a good exit. He gets a decent one. Gap is 3/10 as we briefly lose him to the and he rematerialises. Surely we're not going to lose William Humphrey on the final lap. That would be absolute cruelty. But as Nickerson comes on through, and turn 12 in towards 13. Humphrey now only 2 tenths behind, but under breaking into 13, Nickerson knows there's only one place he needs to hold on. It's at this hairpin. Humphrey's not close enough to try and look for a move. Nickerson just needs to take it easy. Humphrey backing off there. He can't get alongside. Oh, it's gone wrong! Nickerson goes round. I'm not sure if there was contact, but where's Ryan Nickerson goes spinning around. And if there was contact, well, we'll have to try and get a replay. But for William Humphrey, Split Straight Esports is Ryan Nickerson have to wait his turn once again. But for William Humphrey, it is going to be victory here today at Misano, race number 2, elite and overall. Tseard Ploeg with 2nd place will be your provisional elite champion for Vulkan Motorsports 1 after the win in race 1. He's done it, ladies and gentlemen. And Ryan Nickerson, he'll be fuming to finish 3rd, but Nicholas Carlson will not be. He'll be absolutely ecstatic. He'll be full of ecstasy because the Beowulf Racing Team driver takes his first pro win of the season. Well done to him. Brandon Dyer takes 5th header. Benediktas Sinkevicius, Menno Blom returns to the podium in the pro class. once again, second in class with SimRacing Team Lowlands ahead of Lewis Kenyon and Stephen Donnelly, who in the end relegated to third place in Pro, but to be fair, on the podium ahead of Alex Fretwell, who takes 10th place. The RLH driver ahead of Jamie Bardwell completes the Pro top 5, and Mike Barber taking over his best result of the season, 7th in the elite class, 12th overall. What a drive from him. We've still got a few drives coming to their finish. Let's not forget about them, including Mark Johnson as he comes across the line then 25th place, with James Howard further back then 26th, and then we do have a bit of time before Fotis Katios comes to line, but here he is, ladies and gentlemen, and well, it's not quite the result he was hoping for, missed his front bumper as well, but I'll tell you one thing, it is a key result in terms of some points gained, as Mark DeVries parks up there 28th, ahead of Schubert Cardozo and Chris Jennings as they come across the line to complete your top 30, and then your last finish of this race will be Adam Baker 31st. He will be on the lead lap, and indeed Danny Phillips was 2 laps down that finish, and Wesley Van Rens as well, the late retirement. But of course, the one question you'll all be asking is we do see Tseard Ploeg celebrate the fact he knows he's done it. He knows he is your elite provisional champion for Vulkan Motorsports 1 for this season. He did all the maths and he has absolutely scored what he needed to, with the best part there of 90 points from today. It is enough with his rivals as well, not quite scoring as high. And for Tseard Ploeg, he'll be absolutely over the moon. But of course, we need to know what exactly happened between Ryan Nickerson and William Humphrey, and here is your replay. So making the way in towards the last couple of corners. I don't think this camera angle is going to help us here, making the way on out. But in the end, it looks like there may have been a small touch between them. Can we get an on board there with William Humphrey? The answer is yes, we can. And this was the on board from the dashboard. Let's listen in. And I think if there was contact, it is minimal. Nickerson did lose the rear coming out of the corner by default. Now, I don't know if that was exacerbated by Humphrey giving a small touch or not. It's not very conclusive, ladies and gentlemen, so we're not going to pass judgment on it. Again, if it is, it's the tiniest of contact. Humphrey, I think, feels as though he did not make the contact, and that's why he celebrated across the line, absolutely ecstatic. And, well, we're going to roll with that for now, but it is a bit of a contentious moment there, and, well, understandably, we can't let it take away from a brilliant drive from both drivers and for William Humphrey to return to winning ways as well. And with that, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. And as we can see, William Humphrey, your winner for Vulkan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing, our second race of the day, ahead of Vulkan Motorsports 1's Tseard Ploeg, who in the end bring home the run-up spot there, and that's enough to become elite champion for the Vulkan Motorsports 1 driver. It was a further 5 seconds back to Ryan Nickerson, who today was so tantalisingly close to his first win of the season, but an incident or a mistake, we don't know which one, but definitely it all went wrong coming out to turn number 14, and for Nickerson on that final lap for Split Track Esports, the weight carries on. The Ferrari drive then followed up by Nicholas Carlson, pro winner there for Beowulf Racing Team, his first pro win of the season. What a drive from him, and after that disappointing 5th place in the first race to take the winning class in this one, he'll be absolutely proud knowing he had to hold off the attacks non-stop from Stephen Donnelly. On the way to Donnelly, there's Brandon Dyer, firstly 5th there for InterRacing Team, ahead of Benediktas Sinkevicius for Vulkan Motorsports 1. Menno Bloom took the run-up spot in the pro class in the end, just staying out of trouble, and the SimRacing Team Lowlands driver absolutely flying high for the Netherlands. Lewis Kenyon took 8th place there for Vulkan Motorsports 2, ahead of JSD Racing's Stephen Donnelly, who, despite a bit of a fall in form towards the end of the race, still took the first place spot on the pro podium. And it was Alex Fretwell just behind there for RLH, round off the top 10. Jamie Bardwell's best rest in 11th place, had a lot of pace today, but unfortunately not the right time to use it, perhaps for Phoenix Racing Red, ahead of Mike Barber for Crate Mass Motorsport with a season best overall performance there of 12th place. And then next up, Mark Hutchinson and Tim Modi completed your top 15. Mikey Story was 16th there for Dexterous Motorsports Kumar, and in the end fought very hard to take that 16th place. Some valuable points coming his way, ahead of Hayden Miller, who just was not on the pace, and with some mid-race incidents as well, everything went a bit too far backwards of the Scotsman. Villa Katonen, it went well for him for Beowulf Racing Team, and in the end having to settle for 18th ahead of Ashley Coupland, with Cy Ante completed the top 20. And outside that top 20 in 21st, it was Liam Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club, ahead of Nathan Anstis for UK SimRacing Norris, who turned the frown of race number 1 upside down and says fun racing that in the YouTube chat, so he's had some fun out there in this one, ahead of Matthew Bacon, with Thomas Pugh and Mark Johnson completing a top 25. Behind the Axis Sport pair, it was then Dexterous Motorsports MX's James Howarth who found himself missing a front bumper after that contact with Reece Saunders, and Fortis Katios there with the early spin could only recover to 27th place. Mark De Vries, Schubert Cardozo and Chris Jennings completed your top 30, and rounded off the lead lap finishers in 31st, it was none other than Adam Baker for LS Racing. It was a lap down to Wesley Van Rens, and it was 2 down to David Hutchison, in fact to Danny Phillips. Let's not skip over the elite driver, and the Dexterous Motorsports Kamara driver was your last classified finisher of the race, with retirement. So David Hutchison, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, and sadly, and surprisingly for your Pro Championship leader, Reece Saunders there for Altitude Frame Esports. But coming to the individual class finishing positions, because this is where the points are made and lost. And as we can see, William Humphrey there returning to the top step for Vulkan Fasters by Glass Step Racing by 3.8 seconds over Tseard Ploeg. The Vulkan Motorsports 1 driver in the end, not taking the win, but doing everything right. And with that, combined with his win in race number 1, he is your provisional elite champion for season 11 of the Thursday GT3 Championship, brought to you by SimRacing International. Congratulations to him. Ryan Nickerson, 3rd place there for Split Strat Esports. And well, understanding when he gets out the car, he will be having his head in his hands. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few tears there. What does it take to bring home a win? And today it has not come his way, but understandably he'll need to dig deep and think to himself he's put on an incredible performance today, and everyone will applaud him for that. Brandon Dyer behind the Split Strat Esports machine by 4 seconds in the end, taking 4th for Inter-Racing team. Looked quick early on, but then the pace started to disintegrate, and for Benediktas Sinkevicius for Vulkan Motorsports 1, some key points being brought, but also a few bumps and scrapes of other drivers there. Not his happiest day. Lewis Kenyon was just behind his teammate there in 6th, ahead of Mike Barber, with the Quetmas Motorsport driver taking that 7th place, his best set of points from a sprint race this season, and Mark Hutchison in 8th there, just behind for Altitude Frame Esports. Hutchison had to dig deep to hold off Tim Modig. He did so with the Sim Coach driver only 2 tenths behind at the line, and Hayden Miller was a further 2.5 seconds adrift in 10th. Then Ashley Kilton took 11th place ahead of Thomas Pugh. We've been 2 laps down behind the Extra Sport X driver for Dexterous Motorsports' Danny Phillips, and we did have the retirement sadly for Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. And what is it going to take for that man to have some good luck? Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you've got a cure for his bad luck, be sure to send it his way, because it's all gone wrong again today for the world of racing with STR Motorsports driver. But with that, we come to the Pro class, last but by no means least. And as we can see here, your winner, Nicholas Carlson. It feels so good to be able to say that, ladies and gentlemen. He's been pushing hard all season long for that first win, and he's finally landed at the Smiling Swede for Beowulf Racing Team. Menno Blom, 7.5 seconds behind. And the Corvette driver in the end definitely looked like a weapon towards the end of the race. And when he managed to weaponise his Corvette to take the 2nd place ahead of Stephen Donnelly, and the Joe Sparrow Racing driver in the end could not quite bring on home what was the win, but he was able to make sure he was on the podium despite pushing Carlson hard all the way through the opening 20 minutes of the race. Alex Fretwell took 4th place for RLH ahead of Jamie Bardwell. A very good top 5 finish there for Fretwell. A return to the top 5 for some time, and Bardwell in the end unfortunately had the pace but not the timing to be able to get the job done for Phoenix Racing Red. Nick Stubb, 6th there for Vulkan Fasters by Glass Step Racing, fighting hard for that, ahead of Mikey Story, who in turn had to dig deep for Dexterous Motorsports Kumar to pick up some valuable points. And then we see Villa Katonen, Sight Anti, and Liam Fraser completing your top 10, and Liam Fraser fighting forward in this one just ahead of Nathan Anstis. In 12th, it was Matthew Bacon ahead of Mark Johnson, with James Howarth and Fortis Katios struggling on home to 15th place, both missing their front bumpers at different points in the race. And Mark De Vries 16th there ahead of Schubert Cardozo, with Chris Jennings and Adam Baker completing your lead lap finishers. And behind the LS Racing drive, it was a lap down to Wesley Van Rens, who was looking so good early on until that huge instant put it all to pieces. A lap down there for 9 Pegasus Panther, a racing driver, after what was that brilliant drive in race number 1. And outside the top 20 there, not to be forgotten about, it was retirements for David Hutchison for Axis Sport X, and most critically for the championship leader, Reece Saunders there for Altitude Frame Esports. Definitely this round is going to become his drop score. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the results. And, well, the good news is this broadcast isn't quite over, because whilst the racing has definitely come to a stop, well, we're only going to take a pause for about 5 minutes, and then we will be back for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And I'm sure they've got plenty to say about the driving in the mixed conditions at Misano today. But who exactly will we have in the interview room? We'll just hold on for 5 minutes, and you'll be sure to find out. We'll see you very shortly. And And it's lights out and away we go for our season opener as Tseard Ploeg gets a good start, but look alongside him and you'll see there Milton Tomlinson-Dennis immediately going the attack into the braking zone. One drive into the grass already, that's Mikey's story, but 3 wide they come into the opening corner. That's a bold move there. William Humphrey makes the place as they make the way through in towards turn number 2. I think the Altitude 3M esports driver here might just be fancying his chances once again as they come into the braking zone now for turn number 1, and as they make the way from right into left, well, Hayden Miller here side by side with him. They'll go all the way through to turn number 3, and Saunders does take the place there. That's for overall position, not for pro position. Saunders is the pro leader, but he goes a bit deep there in 3 to the inside of 4 then, and Miller right now enjoying this. Saunders enjoying it. A little bit of rub and contact between the two of them, but nothing wrong with a bit of bump and grind between the two Ford, for the Ford and the Corvette, the 2 Americans I should say. And
with those 2 Evo drivers in front of them, they're just, you know, they're realistically in a completely different race. They're just a barrier up towards the likes of Rubino and Wendell. Oh, there's Rubino going off the road, and here comes James Bostock, past 1, past 2. This is a great little move from James.
Oh, and look behind him as well. Hardiek, sorry, up high. He decides to come back down low. But Denny Plurger has really lost a lot of ground here. He's lost 7 places since the start of this race in that green Porsche. But look at this, for the lead. Hammond wants it. He's gone back down the inside. He got off the brakes again to let the car down the inside of Rob Mackay. And you said Rob was going to be clinging on at the front. And now he's clinging on to second. Great move by Lewis Hammond. Really good committed stuff. And look, down the inside, Richard White. He wants a piece of this in the Porsche. He's got James Bostock.
And it's lights out and away we go here as Mirko Bortolotti goes exactly on the green, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, Martin Statman side by side with him, but look behind, Tim Perry under pressure and Miguel Leon immediately as the Enosis Esports driver tries to put the pressure on. Further back we've got 3, 4 wide, they're all in the crush as they come through the opening bay. Look back for the rear of your second place runner, Statman, and Statman right now for the Gazex Racer team. What he's trying to do here, I think now, is just hold on to second, and if needed, he may have that to a bit of a buffer and perhaps sacrifice a little bit of his race for the race leader here, although Bortolotti, to be fair, I think might be holding some pace back. But here comes Lux in the tow, in towards what we roller coaster they come with the Virginian corkscrew. It's left into right very quickly here as they both make the way, and it's 2 wide on entry, but Lux gets ahead. It's up into second now, as it will be Martin Statman falling down to 3rd, but Callum Lux does clear another one, and now only 1 car is between him and an opportunity of victory here today. Which is Perry going to make the move, or I'm going to have to make the move for him? Well, there's your answer. Perry's going to go on the inside here of Dean into the braking zone. Edwards gets to watch it from the popcorn seat view. Perry there being 2 wide on exit. Dean's going to try and hang around the outside. Does Edwards think about going up the inside as well? He gets himself ready for it in case there's contact, but there's not. Perry there being fair. Dean tucks back in behind. Lovely move there from Tim Perry. And I think meanwhile Beardsworth will hope they don't get close up in time as Beardsworth's going to look up the inside. He goes all in, and it's from very far back. He gets it stopped, however, and Beardsworth there nails the move, but Tillerson's going to come back at him up the hill. Does he go in on the brakes here? This is bold to do it on the inside. No, he does not. And Brian Beardsworth at the end, he gets it wrong. He goes out wide at turn number 6. Tillerson's going to be 2 wide with him, but 2 wide they're going to turn 7. Tillerson goes on the switch back there. 9 is no way through, and in the end they come down towards turn number 8. Well, there Tillerson backs off. He lets Hutchinson go around the outside, but is it the right call? Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time to kick off our post-round interviews from Misano today. And what better way to kick off than have the man who is your provisional elite champion join me in the interview room. It is none other than Tseard Ploeg. Tseard, you've done it. On paper, subject to the insurance inquiries, your first place and your second place, it is over the 80 points you've needed. You are our provisional elite champion. How does that sound?
Man, I'm so happy. The day went actually surprisingly well. So yeah, man, it's so fun to already just relax, you know. I think after the first race I was already kind of P1, so the second race was just like chill, just get points, you know. And man, it's such a relief.
Oh, fantastic. That's so good to hear. I mean, it's such a relief, like you say. It means you go into the season finale with no pressure on you other than to try and help your team at Benediktas in the Teams Championship and also in his aspirations. But of course, coming into this round, as the favourite, it's a title that not everybody feels comfortable with. How are you feeling? Do you think I'm here today to wrap it up? Or actually, you know what? If I wrap it up here in Misano, great. If not, we just go to Imola.
Well, it was kind of like people, of course, I am so far in front and I'm good in the wet. So people are just going to assume like he's going to dominate. But the Acura was not very nice to drive in the wet here. It had no traction whatsoever. And on the puddles, it just did not grip up. So I was like, I don't know how well I'm going to do, but I'll just push as fast as, like as hard as I can. And it worked. So yeah, it was quite nerve-wracking knowing that I don't know how big how great my chance is.
All fair play. Well, nerve-wracking day, and in qualifying, we did see the qualifying session really come down to a couple of main individuals, yourself being one of them, but in the end, you're able to outpace Ryan Nickerson by only a tenth. The two of you were so close.
Yeah, man. Seeing him like being able to brake and go have so much more speed in mid-corner was just like, man, this is unfair. But luckily I could get the power down and just shoot away on exits. If I didn't have the traction I had, then he would have overtaken me like a few laps in, because he had so much more pace than me, I believe.
Well, he had the pace, he had the traction, but going into a race number one, I mean, we saw the two of you battling so hard in the early stage of the race, and in the end, well, it all came down to fine margins, although towards the end of the race, a bit of contact between the two of you, and then the gentleman gave the place back at the finish line.
Yeah, in the start, he actually around in T1, he held it around the outside, which I found super surprising, like props to you doing that. And then I was on the outside of T2, massive puddle, so I couldn't stay there. And then I think he got a bad exit, and then like I believe in the last corner of a lap, I don't know which one again, but then he just let me by or something. I was like, okay, sure, I'll just overtake. And then in like I believe last lap or penultimate lap, we did have some contact in turn 2. I squeezed him a bit, he went a bit wide, so I'm not going to blame anyone for this. But yeah, it's a massive respect to him giving me the place back. Really massive respect.
Oh, 100%. I mean, gentlemen racing between the two of you, we couldn't ask for better. And so it was a win in race number one. Of course, a circuit that was increasingly wet. The rain kept coming. But race number two, of course, the rain went away and the circuit started to dry. Did you change your setup at all going into race two?
I just put a little bit less fuel because I overfueled in the first race with an insane amount, like 15 liters too much. So I reduced the fuel a bit, but then on the setup I didn't change anything. But yeah, about that.
All fair play. And in the race, of course, we did see a lot of fighting take place in front of you. The whole top 15 just full of fighting for the opening 20 minutes or so. And yourself at the back of it. I mean, did you come into this race thinking, you know what, I'll find my way through gradually, but I don't need to force my way through, perhaps?
Yeah, I was hoping to gain a few places in the start. I was trying some around the outside moves, but there it was just too busy that I couldn't do it. And then in like turn 6, I got in a checkup, and I just had to slam the brake. I think I almost hit the guy in front, and then I got slammed in the back of because I had to brake this much, and so I lost some positions by that, and a huge gap in front of me. So I was like, yeah, okay, I don't know how well I'm gonna do this race, but still ended up in P2. So I'm amazed by that I was able to get my way forward like that.
Well, Deidre, you're able to sneak your way through bit by bit over that one. And how was it driving on the drying circuit? Because it looked as though a lot of drivers had pushed so hard early on they had no tyre life left, whereas others had protected the tyres for so long they had some compound remaining.
Yeah, I was one of the people that pushed quite a bit. I was hoping to catch the guys ahead, but then I saw like my pace and was like, yeah, okay, I'll just drive like this. I have a massive gap behind me, massive gap in front of me. Let me just finish this race. And then Ryan spun, so I got P2 anyways. So that was great.
Oh, indeed. And coming to that finish line, I mean, you'd already picked up the win in race number 1 and crossed the line in second place. Was there a moment where as you crossed the line you thought, you know what, it's over, I can just relax now?
Yeah, man, it was such, like I said before, such a relief. I'm so happy I got the championship again. I had two miserable championships ago. Um, just happy to be able to put the performance down again. Because 2 seasons ago I was in the Merc. It did not suit me at all. Then I was in the Lambo. I was quick, but we had Sam and Andy, which were both just like a league higher than me, basically. So I'm happy to be able to be on the podium position again.
I mean, we're so happy for you as well. The fact that you've been able to take the elite crown and do it in style in very challenging conditions today, you couldn't have done it any harder way. And one round remains now. Imola next time out. What's the plan for our season finale?
I don't think I will practice a lot because we also have an endurance race coming up this weekend. So yeah, I'm just gonna be there to just participate in the race. I will not practice a lot. I will just make sure I'm comfortable, but I'm not looking for any pace or whatever. Just finishing the race.
Oh, that's absolutely fair, and we can understand that priorities may change slightly, but we look forward to seeing you on the grid at Imola, even if you are just there to make sure you pick up some points to see the season off on a high. Just before I do let you go, sir, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
I mean, I massive respect to Ryan for actually slowing down on the last lap. We need more people like this because there are some people that are like, we spin. Well, we don't care, just let the stewards decide. But it's nice to see some gentlemen actually being there on the circuit as well.
Oh, I'm sure Ryan will appreciate the shout out, no doubt about it, said. And, well, again, congratulations, Dave, not just on a double podium, not just on the win in race number 1, but also sealing the deal and becoming our Season 11 Provisional Elite Champion. It's well deserved. I'm sure everyone tuning in will be giving you a round of applause right now, like I am here in the Conte booth, because it's been incredible, my friend, and we look forward to seeing you on the grid for the season finale at Imola 9. The pressure is off, but still aiming to end your season on a high.
Thank you, and good luck for the next interviews.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
You too.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from a very happy Tseard Ploeg for Vulkan Motorsports 1. And talking about the fact here today, he came into this round 9, he knew what he needed to do, and, well, he went all in for it, but also amazed at the pace of some drivers, and particularly coming back to the name time and time again of Ryan Nickerson. The pace of that man here in the wet, absolutely phenomenal, and taking Tseard Ploeg the distance in qualifying, attempts separating the two, and then in the two going toe-to-toe in race number 1. And when it did go wrong, when Ploeg was turned around towards the end of the race, Nickerson giving the place back. Their gentleman racer at heart, even though he was only about 100 metres from seeing his first win of the season, but then giving it up because knowing he wanted to do it the proper way. And in race number 2, starting all the way back in 15th place there, playing it smart initially, but did mention the fact that he did play this race to the thought process, which was he needed to attack early to make up the places, and therefore didn't have as much of a car remaining as he would have liked to in the second half of the race in terms of tyre life. But in the end, with what was the last minute spin for Ryan Nickerson in his battle with William Humphrey, where he was able to move from 3rd to 2nd. He only needed 4th to steal the championship, but he got it done, and it is a huge relief to the Vulkan Motorsports 1 driver. He'll be at Imola, but he's not going to spend as much practice. He's now got other priorities to think of, but he'll still be there, and we look forward to seeing whether he can help get the points with Benediktas Sinkevicius to ensure Vulkan Motorsports 1 finish in the top 5 of the team's championship. But ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come. That's our first one, but who's up next? We're about to find out. And so it is to our second interview we come. And as we do, well, joining me now in the interview room is none other than Ryan Nickerson. And, well, as we say, a good afternoon to Ryan. Ryan, if I was there with you right now, I would be giving you the biggest hug I can. I mean, I think we're all asking the question, what is it going to take for you to take home an elite and overall win? I mean, I don't want to ask it, how are you feeling right now?
You know, it's that undescribable feeling of disappointment in myself. But there's another part of me, like, there's nothing I can do now. so I gave it my all. That's about it.
Oh, 100%. And tell you what, let's talk about something really positive here. I mean, you've received a huge amount of praise from our elite champion. We're going to talk about that praise you received shortly. One thing first, qualifying. Taking Tseard Ploeg the distance in qualifying to what was a 10th in the end. I mean, you're just a magician in these conditions.
Yeah, definitely felt really confident. Especially since the last time in Virginia, same kind of condition. Sorry if I sound like nasally. I'm pretty sick right now. But I knew that I was gonna do well, and so I thought I had him, and then he got the 10th, and I just couldn't get it back. So really, really close qualifying. Yeah, definitely had to get me out a couple times and try and beat it. So.
Well, close qualifying, but even closer in the race. I mean, it's not often that we do see somebody pull a move in the wet around the outside of the opening corners. I mean, you were just absolutely bold from the start. I mean, that must have been the perfect start from your perspective.
Yeah, I knew I had a little. I felt like I had more. That's that feeling. I just had it. And so I got the move done, and it's so annoying. I thought I underfueled, and so I was fuel saving. And then I made a mistake, and so I thought, I'll just let him go. I'll just fuel save behind him. And I realized I actually had way more than enough, and then I just could not get past.
Oh, I mean, I feel for you hearing that right now, because you'd always convinced yourself out of being able to win in the way. But of course, towards the end of the race, we did see the two of you get very close. There was a bit of contact between the two of you. And I mean, we've just heard from Tseard, who was saying the fact that he wishes more drivers were like yourself in terms of being a gentleman racer there. Just take us through it from your perspective, and what, in a way, motivated you to give the place back.
Oh, I felt so bad, because I knew that was gonna hydroplane. I knew he was gonna, like, the previous laps when I did it, he kind of kept it a close line, which is good, because it forces me to go a little bit slower. There was just this little puddle there that made me go wide, and I was like, I didn't want to have my first victory be off of, because I killed a dude. So I respect him. He's like, I call him the next Verstappen because he's insane, and so I just thought I might as well.
Oh, fair play. Well, I mean, it's the best way to do it, and understanding, like you say, you don't want to take your first win knowing that you've taken somebody out in order to achieve it. So, second place, but knowing you almost had it. Race number 2, again, starting 14th. I mean, you came through the field like an absolute weapon, but something tells me it was all about you needed to clear people as quickly as possible because the car wasn't going to last when the circuit dried up.
Yeah, I didn't do as much practice as I should have on the dry circuit. It was annoying too because the tires were starting to go, and that's probably because I was pushing so hard in the beginning half. So that was really unfortunate, but it was the same thing. I knew I got lucky because Tseard got caught behind a crash, so I knew I had to gap, and I was more worried about him than anyone else. So I knew sooner I was able to clear like everyone else. Should have been a very simple race, but sadly the tires started to run away from me.
Well, the tyres started to go away. I mean, hold on to that lead, and then Sonny, with only a couple of laps to go, there's just one Aston Martin who happens to be the fly in the ointment, and that's William Humphrey. I mean, it was close, and on the final lap, I do have to ask, was there contact from your perspective, or had you lost the rear already? I mean, we couldn't really tell from the cameras.
Well, the biased version is that I would have saved it, but we never know now. But there was contact because I got a 0x and then a 2x for going off track. So there was contact. Would I have saved it either way? We'll never know. But yeah, just unfortunate.
Oh, indeed it was. I mean, I'm sure there was no harm meant with regards to what happened there. And like you say, you're in the process of saving it. But what's happened. And to be fair, still bringing the car home in third. A huge haul of points for yourself. Not the win you're hunting. You've fallen slightly short of it in both races today, but still one of your best days of the season. And we've still got one more to go. It is Imola up next time. What's the plan there?
Well, we're going to go for the win. I mean, last race of the season. you might as well go big or go home. I haven't, knocking on wood right now, I haven't had a shitty, sorry, pardon my language. I haven't had a terrible round yet, and so that kind of just gives me the confidence to go all in. Because even if I like do bad, it'll just be my drop round. So.
All fair play. I mean, I'm loving that confidence, to be fair, and that's the one thing we'd love to see, Ryan. I mean, end of season, if we saw you take the win at Imola, I'll tell you one thing, if I ever get to meet you in person, I'll be buying you a drink to celebrate that myself. But before we do let you go, I do have to ask, as always, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Of course, we already know my favorite teammate, my guy, Fotis. He's always there, always working hard, always making it enjoyable. And then today, shout out to Jordan. He was spotting for us, you know, kind of putting things through him strategy-wise. And then shout out to Matt, who tuned in from school.
Oh, fair play. Well, hello to Matt as well, and hopefully he's not been caught there watching whilst also meant to be studying, but to be fair, studying this is more important than whatever maths can teach you. With that, Ryan, we'll leave it there. Congratulations, Dave, on a double podium. We know it wasn't the win, but you were absolutely ferocious here in the wet, and we do hope we get to see you right up there at the front at Imola. But until then, hope you feel a bit better soon, and we'll see you for our season finale.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Well, hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from Ryan Nickerson, the elite driver Split Strat Esports today, and, well, understandably, as he mentioned there, that feeling of being happy but also disappointed at the same time in the fact that he had so much pace here, whereas in qualifying all the races, but in the end, he wasn't able to take pole, but his target was victory, and in both races, just falling short. Admitting in race number 1 that whilst he could have taken the win, the itch was there. He didn't want to take it after making that contact with Tseard Ploeg, but to be fair, the respect between the two of them, absolutely admirable now that we've heard from both sides. And in race number 2, knowing that because he hadn't had as much of a chance to practice with the drying conditions as he should have perhaps, and then he was struggling towards the end, and that's what brought William Humphrey into the fight with him with only 3 laps to go. And with that contact in the end, and from his perspective, his biased view, and he completely admitted there, contact is a 0x converted into a 2x for loss of control. Well, for Ryan Nickerson, definitely a very bittersweet end to the race. Of course, we'd love to hear from William Humphrey's perspective if we do get a chance to speak to him. But for Ryan Nickerson, understandably, taking what's happened and, to be fair, moving forward. And his target, Imola, well, you guessed it, win. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, if we do see a win there, I'm sure we're having one more conversation with him to wrap up the season, and what a conversation that will be. But more interviews to come. Just hold your horses, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back very shortly. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come to our third interviewee, and joining me now in the interview room, it's a first-time pro win for this man, because Nicholas Carlson joins me in the interview room. Nicholas, what a day for yourself. I mean, it went a bit sideways in race number 1, but to be fair, you brought home the win in the end. How does it feel to have finally broken the first pro win?
Well, it feels amazing. I'm really happy. I was not too enthusiastic when I started out today, but obviously ending up like this, I'm kind of happy.
Now, to be fair, coming into this round, whilst you may not sound enthusiastic, we have heard in the YouTube chat from some of the Beowulf fan group that you're a big fan of this Misano circuit.
Absolutely not. That's the biggest lie I've ever heard. One of my worst. I hate this track so much.
I see. We've been victim to fake news here at SimRacing International. We'll make a note of that. But still, in qualifying, 9th place overall, 3rd in class. I mean, you're quite quick out there in the conditions.
Yeah, I think the rain saved me. In the dry pace, I would probably be at least half a second off where I should be. But the rain saved me, luckily enough. So happy about that one for once.
All fair play. Well, happy with that qualifying performance. And then going into race number 1, in the early stage of the race, we did see you make quite a bit of progress there. And at some point, it was looking as though it might be an opportunity, not just for the podium, but for the win. But things got a little bit scrappy as the race went on.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun. Like, I started right next to Wesley Van Vrans and Mena Bloom, like the guys that are around me in the championship, and it was tight. And I was following Wesley, and he had a little bit of slip, and he rejoined. And then I think he braked maybe a little bit late, or maybe I missed and braked a little bit early, and I had to weave to not kill him. And that sort of ended my ability to end up in the top at least.
Or indeed, unfortunate with regards to that, but to be fair, doing everything you could to take evasive action and making sure you survived the race. And this Lamborghini, I mean, many do think of the Lamborghini and the Audi R8, both Audi engine cars, of course, as some would say death traps in a way. And the fact, very lovely cars when the tyres are nice, but as soon as the tyres wear down at all, they're very tricky to drive. But you look like you've absolutely tamed the prancing bull.
Well, I'm getting used to it, and it's really nice to have good tires to begin with. You can tell that I'm outpacing people I shouldn't be outpacing in the early laps, and I maybe build up a bit of false confidence, but then eventually they run away.
Well, fair play. So a 5th place in race number 1, and now going into race number 2, of course, a drying circuit, albeit one where you'd be starting towards the very front of the field from 3rd on the grid. I mean, you must have been thinking to yourself at that point, we're going to win this one.
Well, I was actually exhausted from the first one. I was thinking, how am I going to make it through this one? But I was starting up front and just catching the elite drivers in front of me because of the tire advantage I have. But then I had Stephen Donnelly right up behind me throughout the entire race. I was quite stressed, but luckily it ended up the way it did.
Oh, indeed. And that's the one thing. We've seen Stephen Donnelly be very quick in these wet conditions in the past. Indeed, we only have to look back to Portimao for where he did take that win. But in the end, able to hold him off. And what do you think was your advantage? Was it the fact as the circuit got dry, you seemed to just hold the pace and he didn't? Or was there other things that you think held it off?
I think it was the success factor in rain that you don't spin. And I guess I was lucky enough this time to not spin.
Oh, fair. To be fair, no spins for yourself, but definitely a trickiness for him. And as the lap started to wind down, I mean, was there a point where you're starting to think to yourself, you know what, pinch me, am I actually going to win a pro race for once?
Yeah, every time it's about to happen or something like that, it's about 5 minutes left, and I stop staring at the apexes, and I kind of lose myself, and I had to think about it twice.
Oh, fair play. Well, in the end, it definitely did happen. And, well, I can't quite pinch it amongst them on the other side of Europe, but I would if I could. But with that first win of the season, some big points here today. And by the looks of things, you're definitely moving forward in the Pro Championship just before the season finale. So it's all looking good for Imola then.
Yeah, I was only thinking championship, because I had to miss a couple of races, and I had an awful first race. So I think I was down in 20th or something like that coming into round number 5. So I'm really happy that I'm actually managing to claw back.
Yeah, clawing back some big points. And with regards to the Imola circuit, is it a circuit you enjoy? Is it one where there's going to be a lot of practice if you want to do well there?
I guess the fan club is going to say in the chat that I hate it, and that's going to mean I love it, because Imola is one of my favorite circuits. So I'll probably jinx myself now.
Oh, fair play. Well, just before we do let you go, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to on the broadcast today?
Yeah, obviously my teammate, Ville Katonen, for the Beowulf 1-1, if you want to call it that. And I'd like to give a shout out to Mikey Story as well, for actually having really respectful racing and going through side by side for the first part of the lap, considering we had a bit of scruffing last race. So I'm really happy about that respect.
Oh, fantastic. And Beef, I'm sure Mikey will be very pleased to hear that. And also, like you say, a 1-1 for yourself and Villa, with Villa taking the win in the first sprint race today. Nicholas, we'll leave it there. Congratulations today on a brilliant pair of drives, particularly for that win, your first win in the Pro Class in race 2 and a 4th overall. We look forward to seeing you at Imola and what you can do to wrap up the season on a high. But until then, have a lovely rest of your night.
Thank you very much. Take care.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from the Beowulf Racing Team driver Nicholas Carlson, indeed, finally nailing that first win of the season. Mentioned there towards the end of race number 2, starting to miss the apexes because he's more focused on just making sure he comes on home and keeping an eye on the fact that it's really happening. But giving credit where it's due, in race 2, the pressure from Stephen Donnelly, absolutely huge. But in the end, Donnelly started making the mistakes, but not Nicholas Carlson, and that was where he was able to open up the gap as he was able to do so over time. However, in race number 1, a bit of a challenging one there after a decent qualifying performance at a circuit he doesn't normally go too well at. Well, in the end, able to qualify third there and definitely make sure that it's not misery at Misano for him, but instead mastery, but find himself right in the thick of the fight and also some sideways moments, and 13th and 5th was the best he could do, but making the most of it in race number 2 and going to Imola, where he's looking forward to the Imola circuit, a circuit he enjoys in his own words there, so we can't definitely be told he doesn't enjoy the circuit, but he's very happy with the fan group and indeed the Beowulf Racing Team. And 9 now in Italy. In a week's time, he may be able to end this season with a brilliant end and indeed a Pro Top 5. But we've got one more interview on the cards, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. Who's it going to be with? We're about to find out. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our final interview of the evening. And joining me now in the interview room, in the theme of two pros following up two elite drivers, it's Alex Fretwell for RLH. Alex, good evening to you. What a day today. Two top 10 performances in the pro class, a big haul of points. Perhaps not as high as what we did see, of course, in race number 2 at Bathurst all those many weeks ago. But given the conditions, I think you'd rather ride this high as much as you would the Australian race.
Yeah, very happy with tonight. A pretty measured effort, really. Not too much pushing or anything like that. Just getting a few places in each race with some incidents ahead. And yeah, quali was interesting. Obviously, sort of dry at the start, and then quite wet in the middle. So I sat out, I think, the middle 20 minutes of quali and came out just for a run at the end. So that was sort of putting a little bit of pressure on myself, but managed to get a decent lap in and sort of got within range of a decent result. And then yeah, just like I say, picking off I think a couple of places overall, but sort of maintained position in class for race 1, and then yeah, 4 places in class for race 2. Just missed the podium with I think Stephen had an issue late on, and just managed to stay about a second ahead of me. I had a couple of those moments throughout the night where people had gone off and then just came on 1 or 2 seconds in front of me. I was like the first person who didn't manage to gain a place from it, but yeah, I'll take it. It's not a track that's familiar to me, and it's been a while since I've done any wet racing, but really enjoyed it.
Oh, brilliant to hear you enjoyed it. And, well, very interesting in terms of the fact that you happen to be the one driver who perhaps didn't gain from the demise of others just before they rejoined. But still, talking out there in qualifying the 19th and the 8th place, I mean, mentioned about the fact going from dry to wet, then back to dry right at the end of the session. In that last-minute panic to try and get out there and get a final lap together, I mean, how quickly did you have to get the car switched on? How much mental pressure do you put on yourself to switch yourself on, if you will?
Well, obviously we'd seen the forecast from the start of quali, so I knew that it was going to ease up, and then it was just a question really of how many cars were going to be on track, how warm it would get, and how dry it would get. I think there were a few people with sort of 8 minutes left, so just over an outlap and 2 flying laps. Sort of considering whether to throw a set of slicks at it. I was very close. With I think 6 minutes and 10 seconds left, I still had slicks on, but yeah, in the end it was just new wets for one final run with minimal fuel. The first lap wasn't too bad. It was still sort of getting up to speed, so it was almost an out lap, a very conservative banker, and then sort of go for it a little bit more in what's the ideal conditions, sort of right at the end of quali. I think across the line with, I don't know, 10-15 seconds remaining, so was one of the last over the line. Just yeah, probably didn't hang it out as much as I could have done, but yeah, in the end it was a decent quali.
A decent qualifying session. And in race 1, obviously you didn't really gain any class places, but you did manage to gain 1 place overall. The start of the race, at the front of the field, 2 wides are plenty, but everyone's got a bit more visibility. For yourself, starting on the 10th row of the grid, I mean, just take us through what's that like in these conditions at Misano, where it's a right into a left, so you've constantly got to be wary of the fact there's cars on your right, there's cars on your left, and there's puddles everywhere.
Yeah, very, very tricky. I was on the right-hand side for race 1 as well, so like into turn 4, that was just massive bottleneck, really, and just sort of boxed in on the inside, which you want to try and give a bit of space to the car in front, but it's balancing that between not having someone driving through the back of you. But no, race 1 was really clean, to be fair. I did have a couple of moments later on in race 1 where people got it wrong under braking, and I think one time sailed straight across the front of me, and then another time sort of right behind me, flashed across the mirror, and then even on the last couple of corners on the last lap of race 1. Through the right-hand kinks, someone got it very wrong. Can't remember who it was. And I just had visions of them coming straight across the infield backwards into the side of me. Just managed to avoid that. And I think that was probably the 1 place I gained overall. Actually, I think I was 19th for most of the race. Yeah, race 2 was a lot cleaner, to be fair. I think it was a lot more consistent conditions, just slowly drying throughout. So it wasn't really that big change that we saw in race 1 that can catch people out.
Well, indeed, and continuing on the theme of race number 2, we did see quite a few drivers really start to struggle as the circuit was drying up. It seems though several drivers had used up a lot of their tyres in the early stages to try and make progress. Where did you find yourself in that? Did you feel as though you had more tyre life left than others, or were you struggling at the end?
No, it wasn't too bad, to be honest. I think early on in race 2, I was struggling on the brakes a little bit. So I was sort of going a lot softer and a little bit earlier on the brakes, which I think in the end actually paid off. Kept me with some front tyres towards the end. So yeah, if anything, I started to extend the gap as that really dry bit came sort of within the last 4 or 5 laps. So yeah, it was all good. And like I say, after Stephen had his little moment, thought maybe we could have a little bit of a push at him. I think we were just taking a couple of tenths out of him for the last few laps. But yeah, it's pretty tricky to overtake around here if the car in front doesn't make a mistake. We've just got to get a reasonable run, and obviously in these conditions, you're going offline, massive water offline as well. So yeah, it's not something I really wanted to risk.
Well, indeed, already looking good to be fair for 4th, so why risk it excessively for 3rd? And in the end, bringing home a very solid haul of points, staying 8th and a 4th. And it means we head to Imola now with yourself chasing potentially a top 10 finish in the Pro Championship, or at least the top 12. What's the plan when we do head to the Enzo Edino circuit?
Yeah, just maximise the result again, really. Obviously, not been around for the full season, so yeah, any sort of championship position is, I don't want to say irrelevant, but not necessarily a priority. It's just individual races at this point, and yeah. Imola, it's a good track for me. I'll try and be right up there. Podium would be nice, but yeah, there's a lot of quick guys.
All fair play. Well, we look forward to seeing whether you can chase down a podium in the Pro class next time out for our 60-minute finale. But just before we do let you go, Alex, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Just yourself tonight, really. I had the stream on in the background just for any information if anyone happened to change to slicks or anything like that. I wanted to be the first to know. So yeah, you've been my sort of guide through tonight's race.
Well, I appreciate it. It goes to show we can do the broadcast and also be a fly on the wall. With that, Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. It always is. Congratulations, Stay, on a double top 10 and almost a podium in race number 2. We look forward to seeing what you can bring to the table at Imola and whether you can chase the podium for the season finale. Until then, my friend, have a lovely rest of your evening.
Cheers. Thank you.
So hearing there from Alex Fretwell from RLH, ladies and gentlemen, wrapping up our interviews for this evening. And well, great to hear his perspective there on the racing slate and really talking about the fact that, firstly, just making sure not to get into trouble, and in both races having to avoid a lot of trouble around him. Cars coming back across the circuit, taking evasive action, but also a bit of a bad luck streak falling on him in the fact that every time somebody got it wrong in front, he always was the first car to come up behind the car, rejoin him. And he couldn't take a place off of them because they had successfully completed their rejoin. It's an odd one. It sometimes does happen. It's the woe is me, why is everyone else having the luck that I'm not being able to pick up places off of other drivers? But to be fair, the thing about Alex as well is he's definitely a driver who does prioritise making sure his race is safe and sound. And after that, every place he gains from there really is a bit of icing on the cake. And in race number 1, a definite demonstration that gained 1 place in class. Well, no, in fact, gained 1 place overall, let's correct ourselves, but not in class. And in race number 2, again, stayed out of trouble and made the progress where others did not, and really was enjoying himself out there, particularly as the circuit was drying up. And well, definitely almost in with a chance of a podium, but unfortunately not able to quite catch Stephen Donnelly, but he's going to aim for a podium at Imola. And well, we look forward to seeing whether the RLH driver can end his season on a high, because admitting he hasn't made every round, so therefore he's not really in the hunt for a championship position, and he's not thinking about that, but he'd just like to bring home 1 big result to end the season, and we look forward to seeing him try. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. And given the fact we've had 4 interviews, why don't we give you a recap of who we've interviewed today? And as we can see, Women's Elite and the Pro class, they're 2 and 2 each. We always like to keep things as nice and even where possible, even though we had a few more volunteers, and we are sorry we missed them. We'll try and catch them next time. Tseard Ploeg was our first interview, and how could we not open up an interview with our provisional Elite class champion for Season 11 in Split A? The Vulkan Motorsports 1 driver there with the first and second after his pole position, earning the points he needed to get the job done here today. Ryan Nickerson was then next in the interview room, and what a gentleman he was, to be fair, and indeed he's a star in this grid, no doubt about it, the Split Strat Esports Motorsports driver. And indeed, many would come into the interview room and be very frustrated. Many would not even dare go near the interview room when they've had a day like he has had today, where he was in course for what was the win in both races. But in both occasions, he either had to give the win up, or alternatively, the win was given up from him in the end. But for Ryan Nickerson, will definitely making sure the gentleman racer comes first, and in the end, he will one day take a win, and hopefully we'll see that at Imola. Nicholas Carlson taking the pro class opening interview there with what was his first win of the season in race number 2 and a 5th place in race 1. Well done to him for Beowulf Racing Team. And then we heard just now from Alex Fretwell for RLH talking about his consistency in a double top 10 finish and enjoying himself out there every race and every round. Thank you to all 4 drivers for their time in the interview room, and we look forward to plenty more interviews in our season finale in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, sadly, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for joining us today. And if you've enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there right now and wanting to know more about SimRacing International, including how I can get my grammar correct for the first time in wrapping this up, I want to tell you one thing, ladies and gents, we would love to have you join the official community, because that's where you can find out the most information when it comes to SimRacing International. The Discord link is at the very bottom there of your screen. Click on that, you'll be in the beating heart of the community, and then you can find out all the information you need to know if you want to get on the grid. But if you want to get on the grid, what have we got going on, I hear you ask? Well, firstly, you'll be tuning in to our Thursday GT3 Championship Season 11 today, and we do have Season 12 just around the corner, and we'll tell you plenty more about that in the broadcast in a week's time. If you're a GT3 enthusiast, but more of a weekend racer, well, we've got you covered there, because on Sunday evenings, we do have, of course, the UK SimRacing Community Sunday GT3 Championship coming towards the end of its 17th season, but an 18th season is around the corner there. And if you're a fan of GT racing, but you want to go back in time, you want to go back to the Grand Touring Endurance class, the GTE class, which was prominent from 1999 all the way through to 2023. We have got you covered there as well, because the season finale is tomorrow for Season 1, but it will be continuing on Friday evenings, because we can proudly announce we do have a Season 2 on the way, and it will be kicking off at the end of March. And come along to tomorrow night's broadcast if you want to know more about Season 2. Alternatively, if you're looking for something far more casual, perhaps you're a newcomer to league racing, you just want to dip your toes in, you don't want to jump into the deep end, of course we do have our free-to-join practice league, which runs on Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Saturdays. Indeed, there's never been a better time to be part of the community here at SimRacing International, and we would love to have you here. And also on top of that, we need to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include, of course, Carme, Modern Technology, the GP2 Group, and lastly, but by no means least, the Motorsport UK Esports Division. And we need to say a big thank you to them for recognising us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community, and well, we do hope that relationship can continue throughout 2026. We're very grateful for that recognition, and onwards it will go. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, onwards we must go to our season finale. Round number 9 is complete. Round number 10 next time out sees us make away to the Autodromo International Enzo e Dino Ferrari. Imola, since 1953, it has played host to motorsport, and come what will be in a week's time, it will be host to our season finale. Save the date in your diaries, Thursday the 12th of March 2026, and what we will be expected to see there will be the crowning of 2 outstanding championships, because in Split A, we know provisionally who our elite champion is. It is none other than Tseard Ploeg, who's taken the elite crown with a round to spare. But the Pro Championship is open, and it's wider open now, with Rhys Saunders having a dismal day in the office here at Misano. Fotis Katios, however, not able to capitalise as much as he would have liked to, and Mikey Story closing the gap to Katios, no doubt about it. So will it be Rhys Saunders' title to take, or will we suddenly see one final twist in the tail? And there's still the question of the Teams Championship as well, which may be all shaken up today. So definitely tune in next time, where it's a Split A or Split B, because it is going to be a finale not to be missed. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we have been SimRacing International. I'll be your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.